Alright, you and I are about to see a legendary soldier wake up in the ultimate nightmare, a truck full of zombies. After taking a brutal beating, he finds himself in a total hellscape. But here's the thing, this man was an army legend. He could take down hundreds of soldiers solo. But right in the middle of a mission, his own comrades betrayed him. Now he's reincarnated as Mo, a poor kid who's constantly beaten and forced to work. But things are about to change. In his past life, George was a monster in combat, capable of crushing entire armies alone. A helicopter cuts through the clouds, carrying the elite special forces of the Aldir Republic, codenamed Ghost. They were the most feared unit for soldiers and terrorist organizations worldwide. The world's greatest spec op squad. And right there is George Sai, the strongest of them all, standing with a pistol in hand. He tears through enemies like a machine with zero mercy. People worship him as the Warlord. But on July 6, 2025, this absolute legend finally met his end in battle. During a mission to wipe out the Ignite terrorists, the crew reports the helicopter is losing stability due to heavy winds. They want to shift the drop zone, but the Ghost captain snaps that the surprise attack will be ruined. Proceeding now means half the squad dies. He insists they wait, but George grabs a rope. Beck demands to know what the hell he's doing. George announces he's going first and they can meet at point B. Beck yells for him to wait, but the Warlord slides down the rope, hitting the ground perfectly without taking any damage. Then he stares ahead coldly. Beck asks if they can pull back, but the soldier says it's too late. They'll push to point B, telling George to just try not to die. The soldier advances through the shadows until a laser hits his head. A sniper fires. George spins instantly, using a statue to shield himself from the bullet as he prepares to strike back. He breaks cover and takes the shot, nailing the sniper right in the head and arms. The body falls from the roof, but suddenly a gun is pressed against George's neck. He turns, but the assassin tells him not to move. Watch closely right here, just as the trigger's pulled. George elbows his arm, knocking the shot wide. He sweeps the guy's legs, gets behind him, and locks in a choke, ending it by snapping his neck. George looks over, seeing more of them waiting. The assassins open fire on him without a second thought. George moves fast, using a mercenary as a human shield while joking about the rude welcome. He raises his weapon and unloads, dropping everyone in his path. Over the radio, Beck is screaming to see if he's alive. He checks in as he grabs his radio, then heads for the gate. Back at point B, a soldier says they're ready to breach and asks where the hell George is. Beck says there's no response and the guy was just too eager to die. Suddenly, the door flies open. Everyone aims their weapons, but Beck is frozen in absolute shock. George calmly reports the mansion is clear and tells them to handle the intel. The soldiers finally let out a breath of relief. Outside, they can't believe he pulled it off. He really is a monster. But then Beck calls him out. He demands to know why George went rogue, saying anyone who ignores orders is useless to the whole team. George fires back that the mission worked. Plus, if they'd done it Beck's way, the entire unit would have been wiped out for nothing. Beck just scoffs and tells him to shut his mouth. One of the soldiers stands at attention, reporting that the commander-in-chief is calling for the captain. Beck complains that the kid is rebelling, but George tells him not to get it twisted. He only did it to repay a favor and secure the win. It's not about being a rebel. He's doing this for a specific reason. Beck thinks for a moment, then tells the brat to just go die. He's heading to headquarters and expects George to follow every single instruction he's given from here on out. Okay, I know what you're thinking, but get this. George asks for his new orders, only for the entire unit to level their weapons at him. He can only stare, wondering what the hell is going on. The soldiers apologize, saying they're just following Beck's orders. He reaches for the weapon at his waist, but they open fire immediately, hitting him right in the head. George thinks, Beck's orders? Was this the plan all along? Did he intend to kill me from the very start? But a blonde woman had told George to come back alive. That was Sophia, his only light. Suddenly, our hero jolts awake to a strange sound and the stench of rot. He's staring right into a zombie's eyes. He was definitely on that final mission to destroy Ignite. The truck bed opens, dumping piles of bodies into the sea. George falls, realizing the platform is breaking apart. He tumbles down but grabs a ledge, hanging on for dear life. And trust me, you and I definitely need to see what happens next. Trust me, you and I are entering a nightmare. George climbs out, reeling from a mountain of corpses and a stomach-turning stench. Is this the front line of some twisted, bizarre district? He can only wonder. Two men nearby talk about clearing the trash tomorrow morning, like they are just feeding fish in Tokyo Bay. George overhears them and realizes the truth. Suddenly, the wind strips away his blindfold. Japan, his home. On July 6, 2026, George Sai died, only to be reborn on an island of absolute, pure despair. George is losing it. He thought he was in the Middle East. How did he end up in Tokyo Bay? He searches for clues but only finds a truck. He keeps walking until he reaches a forest, sighing in exhaustion. Breathing is getting harder now. George wonders what happened to his body, but he forces himself to keep moving. Food and water are his top priority. He snaps a branch, drinking the liquid inside while perched high in a tree. This reminds him of being stranded in the jungle with his team, but something here is definitely different. He eventually finds a small, isolated town. George continues to push through the area, staying on high alert. This has to be near Tokyo Bay. He steps on a discarded toothpaste tube, thinking this filth shouldn't exist in Japan. Suddenly, something else catches his eye. He stares intently into a jagged piece of broken glass. Now watch this. That isn't his face, it is someone else entirely. Suddenly, a man grabs his shoulder, calling him Michio. George strikes instantly, catching the guy in a chokehold. The man panics, saying it is just him, Masa. Does this guy actually know him? He seems harmless, so George lets him go, realizing his name is now Michio. Masa asks why he is acting so crazy. George asks what he wants, and the guy insists he is a friend. George understands and offers a handshake, apologizing. Masa accepts, relieved his friend is okay after that brutal beating. Beaten? Why? Masa explains that in this mining zone, a guy named Za makes the rules, and that is that. But right then, Za shows up, demanding to know what Masa just called him and especially what Michio said. A lowly slave speaking to him without respect? That is a penalty. He winds up and punches the young man hard. Masa hits the ground near the mirror. Za mocks him for forgetting the rules, and in this place, mistakes hurt. If you make me mad, you pay the price. Masa begs for forgiveness, saying he was wrong. He blames Michio, saying he was just following his lead by not using an honorific first. Za turns to George, surprised he survived that beating. But our main character does not flinch, he just glares back. Za hates those eyes. He thinks Michio needs another lesson, but George stays absolutely silent and motionless. That smug look on his face is about to get a penalty right now. Now pay attention, here is where George shows his skill. He dodges easily, knowing his opponent is a total amateur. George has no interest in hurting civilians, but if he must fight, he will end this quickly. He ducks another punch. George connects with a solid punch. Za starts to fade out, but he manages to stay on his feet, furious. He starts screaming in a rage. George realizes he landed a counter, but the giant has not dropped yet. This body is weaker than expected, but he still moves in. Za swings again with everything he has left. George leaps. Even with a frail body, he knows an elbow strike should be enough to finish this guy. He drives his elbow straight into the chin. Za reels back and collapses. George tells him it is over. Take your petty bullying somewhere else, unless you are looking to die. With that, he turns his back. Za is not done. He pulls a knife from his coat, screaming that anyone who resists gets 100 penalties. George spins around, but a little kid jumps in between them, trying to protect him. The boy yells that it is too dangerous. Za lunges. The kid closes his eyes, but George is already moving. He grabs the knife arm. He warns Za that once a weapon is drawn, lives are officially on the line. He strikes Za in the neck with a vicious chop. Using his leg for leverage, he slams the man down. George mounts him instantly. The young boy screams, unable to believe how fast the tables have turned. Za is gasping and choking, his body paralyzed by fear. The protagonist raises a heavy, lethal fist. Za begs for him to wait, to stop. But George just tells him, "You do not say things like that. Not in a life or death fight." He smashes his fist down with everything he has. The child watches, stunned. So what do you and I take from this? George won, but he knows his new body has serious limits. All right, you and I are watching a weak boy struggle before reality finally sets in for him now. Q is totally confused, asking what the heck is wrong with Moyo. George has zero clue who this kid is or why he looks so familiar, but apparently they are neighbors. He plays it off as total amnesia, just to keep things moving. Moyo apologizes for not even remembering his own name while Q chases him down in pure disbelief. Ja is absolutely livid, screaming that he's going to pay for this. Q is hyped about that absolute beatdown, but George has much bigger concerns, like finding out exactly what this island is. It is an industrial waste dump floating in Tokyo Bay. Just a massive heap of garbage and filth. George has never heard of this place and wonders if a wasteland like this really exists in Japan. The men are slaves in the mines, while the women and kids scavenge through piles of trash. Security is non-existent. It is a giant cesspool that feels even worse than a post-war slum. Q spots a fresh loaf of bread and immediately starts daydreaming about eating it. The vendor tells him to beat it, but George surprises everyone by pulling out some cash. He buys the bread on the spot, leaving Q totally stunned that he's actually sharing. It is a reward for the intel, but the boy is dying to know where the money came from. George calls it the spoils of war. He won't rob a corpse, but he'll take a victory prize. In a hellhole like this, money is everything. Moyo has become a completely different person. Back at his house, he tells his mom they are celebrating tonight thanks to Moyo's big win. His mother tells him to eat up. but Q says he is already full. He tells his mom to eat up so she can stay strong. But suddenly, George catches a very strange scent in the air. He spins around on pure instinct, slamming his elbow back to lock the door shut. He fights to keep it closed while fire begins to swallow the entire house. Q's mother starts choking on smoke as Ja declares that the penalty for defiance is death. Everyone inside is terrified as George desperately tries to force the jammed door open. Now pay attention, because you and I are about to see if he survives this ambush. He searches for anything to use as a weapon and grabs a bag, ready to make his move. Q is shouting in confusion as George launches himself forward with incredible speed. He kicks the door, clean off its hinges, sending thugs flying everywhere while Ja calls him a complete idiot. The thugs surround him from all sides, but George just readies himself for battle. He asks what their goal is this time, but Ja thinks the answer is obvious. For the crime of making him look like a fool, he's going to take their lives. George promises to annihilate every threat, but Ja just laughs in his face. As the smoke thickens, the protagonist drops down into a low, focused crouch. He signals for the others to run while a miner lunges at him with a sharpened knife, but George is ready. He dodges the blade and cracks the thug's skull with a perfectly timed strike. Here's the moment you and I finally see the power of his flail, an improvised weapon made of leather and heavy stones. Once he builds up enough momentum, this simple tool deals absolutely devastating, bone-shattering damage to the target. It is a favorite for elite assassins because it was built specifically to destroy the human body. Ja is frozen in shock as George tells him he's the only one left standing. He charges in a panic, but George slams the flail directly into his arm. The man screams in agony as his bone snaps and his knife hits the floor. George towers over him, looking down with an expression of pure, cold hatred. Ja begs for his life, promising there will be no more punishments. But George doesn't care. Anyone who threatens his life has no right to see tomorrow, until Q stops him. You and I both know killing is wrong, and Q begs him to stop right now. Alright, you and I are about to watch a former soldier struggle to keep his humanity on this brutal prison island. He screams at the boy not to become a killer. He hurls his improvised flail, but it only slams into a post beside Ja. The supervisor looks back, absolutely paralyzed with terror. Michio wonders if he actually missed on purpose. As Ja limps away in pain, Q thanks God for stopping his friend from committing murder. The word murderer echoes in his head. Later, in a warehouse, Ja is on his knees begging for mercy. He asks his boss for permission to punish Michio, claiming the boy beat him like a mindless animal with zero sanity left. A blonde man stands up, calling that behavior unforgivable. Ja agrees, but he is suddenly silenced by a brutal punch to the face. The man snarls that a supervisor losing to a slave miner is pathetic. This failure calls for a beatdown-level execution. Ja screams, terrified of losing his life. After the savage beating, the man pulls back a hand armed with heavy brass knuckles. He repeats Michio's name with a grin. It seems this slave is worth breaking a few more times. Back at the house, Q is devastated. He worked so hard to build their home, and now it is all just piles of rubble. Now, let us see what they do next. His mother asks Michio if he is really okay staying there. He agrees, but only because it was a deal to get some clarity. He will trade information on the island's management, food supply, and secrets. He needs to know exactly what he is up against. Q gets annoyed by his cold tone. He tells him to stop talking like a total stranger and relax. Ever since the memory loss, Michio has been acting strange. Q wonders if his entire personality just flipped overnight. Michio reflects on the kid calling him a different person. He is right. He was once a soldier, until his own allies betrayed him and he lost his life on the battlefield. There is clearly a massive conspiracy behind all of this. He will not let his story end in this hellhole. He will escape this island and dismantle every single traitor who crossed him. The next day, he is outside training his new body. He starts with one-armed push-ups, switching from left to right. Michio wonders if this pathetic strength is really all he has got. His core strength and muscles need to be rebuilt from zero. Suddenly, a familiar voice breaks his concentration. Masa approaches his old friend. Michio recognizes him as the guy who handed him over to Ja's cruelty before. Masa tells him he will be late for the mine. Michio realizes this is a perfect chance to start gathering critical intel. Down in the underground mine, a foreman orders everyone to line up immediately. The subordinates scramble into a row. Two thugs glare at Michio. He figures they must be Ja's former henchmen. The foreman makes a grim announcement. Ja, the supervisor in charge of Team G, is officially dead. The news shocks everyone. The director points to number 8 from Team G, Masa, and names him the new supervisor. The young man points to himself, questioning the news. In the mine, they strike heavy rock with pickaxes. These slaves labor from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. under brutal conditions. The heat and dust in these tunnels are absolutely unforgiving. It is pure exploitation in every sense. A foreman snarls that one man is working too slow. He kicks the worker in the gut, accusing him of dragging everyone down. The man collapses, groaning in agony. Masa places a hand on the man's shoulder, checking on him. He says other teams are the same, but as their supervisor, he will not hit anyone. They can work at their own pace. You and I can see Masa is different. He tells the exhausted man to rest while Michio watches from the shadows. Another foreman interrupts, asking if this is some kind of joke. He hates kind people and thinks Masa is being lazy. He asks if Masa needs discipline, but a pickaxe suddenly strikes his leg. The foreman screams in pain, asking what that was. Michio claims his hand slipped and apologizes. The foreman stomps over, fuming because a simple apology will not cut it. It looks like Michio is the one who needs a lesson. But a voice interrupts, saying they like this. Both men turn around, completely surprised. The man wants in on the action. The miners whisper Kusanagi's name, knowing the foreman is absolutely dead meat. The foreman stammers that he would never dream of fighting him. Kusanagi just gets annoyed by his pathetic cowardice. Then, he launches himself off the ground. He throws a punch, saying if he will not listen, he should die. He strikes his temple. Masa shouts that the power was absolutely insane. Michio realizes it is more than just raw strength. He hit a pressure point with surgical precision. Kusanagi turns, asking if Michio wants to be next. Michio calmly replies that he does not fight without a good reason. Kusanagi recognizes the name and leaps forward. Trust me, you and I will not want to miss what happens next. All right, you and I are jumping into a brutal fight. Michio drops into a stance as Kusanagi lunges, throwing a punch that Michio barely catches with his guard. The miners watching are stunned by the flurry of blows. At this rate, everyone thinks Michio is a dead man walking. The main character stays on the defensive, feeling the weight of those strikes. He's fast, heavy, and dangerously precise. His technique is elite, but he's leaving huge gaps in his offense. Michio plants his foot, waiting for the right moment. He slips to the side, catching Kusanagi off guard and landing a solid blow to his face. The crowd can't believe it. Michio stands his ground. Kusanagi managed to block it, though, admitting the kid actually has some decent power behind him. The guy is almost laughing. They're ready to trade hits until they go numb, but a loud voice suddenly kills the vibe. Everyone turns, confused, before quickly dropping to their knees. Director Akichi has officially arrived on the scene. The director keeps walking with his assistants in tow. He stops for a second to push his glasses up his face. Now watch closely, here's where the real power dynamic shifts. Akichi calls Kusanagi out, and the big man immediately snaps to attention. Akichi warns him not to break the slaves in pointless brawls. He asks if he really wants a report sent to the Marquis of the Blood Pact. Kusanagi starts trembling with pure fear at those words. He claims he was just giving a little educational guidance. Akichi scoffed, asking how punching someone could ever be considered actual guidance. He tells him to shut up, nobody expects a meathead like him to have any actual intelligence anyway. Kusanagi just grumbles under his breath and clenches his fist. Akichi demands to know why the slaves are idling. If they aren't digging every second they breathe, they'll be tossed out like trash. Back to work. Lunch break finally hits at 2 p.m. Michio looks at the meal, it's cold, and completely tasteless. The miners complain that it's never enough food. The supervisors eat like kings, and they can only dream of tasting a real lunchbox just once. They collapse, starving and exhausted. Suddenly, Masa reaches out and offers his own lunchbox to our main character. He tells him to eat. Michio stares at the food but refuses. Masa is confused and asks him why he won't take it. The main character says he doesn't plan on owing anyone any favors. His friend sits down, explaining it's not a favor. It's payback for dragging Michio into trouble earlier. He admits he was a coward when Zia attacked. He can't live with himself after that. So this is the least he can do. You see that smile? It's the first bit of warmth we've seen in this hellhole. Michio takes the chicken, says they're even, and tells him to eat up. But then two other miners sneak up behind them. They joke that if Michio won't eat it, they will. Masa laughs and gives each of them a small piece. Moments later, the director snaps at them. They've been sitting for too long, it's time to get back to their mining posts. These slaves are forced through brutal physical labor with zero rights. Suddenly, one of the miners just collapses to the hard floor. Masa rushes over, begging him to stay alive. But the foreman doesn't care, he just orders everyone to keep moving. Masa is horrified. The fallen man is kicked immediately. The foreman reaches down just to check for a pulse. He complains about the inconvenience before dropping the news. The man is dead. He's from Group G, so just toss him out. Masa desperately tells his friend not to overwork himself. But even after a death, the grueling labor never stops. The order is to get back to digging. In this place, a human life is worth even less than a pile of trash. They leave the man's helmet behind. Michio looks back with pure, burning rage. The bell finally rings, signaling the end of the shift. Masa sighs in relief that it's over, but he notices Michio standing right in front. He asks how Michio is still standing. The The main character just says he's used to this kind of physical strain. Masa wonders if he was always this tough. The bell rings again. Group G needs to stop slacking off. After the mining, they're forced to strip. They walk naked and exhausted through the cold corridors. Guards order them to keep moving. To stop any ore theft, every single slave has to undergo a full-body inspection. Only then are they allowed to return to the surface. The foreman calls out for Group 9 to step forward. Payday is finally here. Michio realizes he's only getting 1,000 yen for 16 hours of back-breaking, grueling work. A worker behind him is actually grateful for the money. Michio wonders how anyone could be happy with such a tiny amount. Just then, a truck pulls up, and everyone gets excited. Our main character wonders what's happening as something approaches the camp. The other miners mention he's still there. Suddenly, some women appear, thanking the miners for their hard work today. Stick with me, things are about to get weird. They're offering a 20% discount on everything. Alright, you and I are about to see how a simple mining appreciation day turns into a total nightmare. Everyone is scrambling for beer and chips while another woman hands out octopus snacks. The orders just keep flooding in without any signs of stopping. One guy cracks open a beer and chugs it. He sighs in bliss, feeling the liquid gold hit every single cell in his body. A worker laughs at Haida. Why save money now? It is the one time they can actually feel alive. He is spending 1,000 yen on pure indulgence. To him, saving money today is just the peak of inefficiency. Mio watches, feeling the whiplash. Just moments ago, they were treated like slaves, and now it is a sudden, weird celebration. Masa admits that it must be nice. Mio asks why he isn't buying anything. Masa says he swore to save every yen until he earns his paradise pass. Mio has no clue what that is. Masa asks if he forgot the brutal lecture they got when they first arrived. The director was blunt. They were just slaves crawling on the earth. Forced to work past their limits for scraps, they lived worse than cattle. But even in this hell, money still talks. Now, pay attention here. This 1 million yen paradise pass is the only thing keeping these men from losing their minds. Everyone cheered for that chance, vowing to save every coin. That same guy promised to see the world again. Yet here he is, spending his life savings on a beer. Masa's resolve is different. No matter how many times he collapses from exhaustion, he won't spend a single yen of his pay. Mio finally sees the trap. There is no rebellion because the masters are dangling two very different carrots in front of them. One is hope. The other is pleasure, where men drown just to forget the hell they're in. The officials know exactly what they are doing. It disgusted Mio to his very core. The young man looks at his small pile of money. How much more does he need for that pass? Masa gets defensive, but Mio tells him to relax. He promises he is not going to leak any of his private info. He holds out a bill. He just wants to help the kid escape. It means Masa still has 60,000 yen left. Counting his salary, that's 2,000 yen a day. He will hit his goal in exactly 1 month. Masa asks why he'd go so far for a stranger. Mio just shrugs he is doing this for him, so don't worry about it. More importantly, Mio needs info. Are there any boats, hidden beaches, or docks on this godforsaken island? Masa says no way. Look for yourself, this island is surrounded by nothing but massive, steep cliffs. Everyone knows escape is suicide. Masa asks if he is crazy, but Mio is determined to go check it out himself. Laws do not exist here. But before he can move, a strange sound cuts through the air. Mio spins around and oh no. He's staring right into the lens of a drone that's locked and loaded. It is a military drone. It locks on, calculates a route, and prepares to fire. Mio scrambles back up the cliff. Masa is confused, but Mio screams for him to run for his life. A bullet grazes past Masa. The young man stands there in pure, frozen shock. They take off in a panic sprint. The drone fires relentlessly, tearing up the ground as Masa screams in terror. Mio looks back in the chaos. He recognizes it the SG Nemesis 1.0. It locks onto anything that moves. Once it identifies a threat, it will hunt its target to the ends of the earth. They call it the Mad Stalker. It is a slaughter weapon that makes hardened soldiers shake with fear. The shots get closer. A bullet slams into the wall right beside them. Mio plants his feet. He turns as Masa screams that there is no way out. Mio says, "Follow me." They dive into the forest, but the drone is still pursuing them. It weaves through trees. This is exactly what Mio expected. Its tracking is top tier. Mio yells for Masa to move, but he is falling behind. Masa says he is finished, but Mio warns him to keep moving or he's dead. Things are looking bad. At this rate, they are dead meat. Then, Mio spots a rat in a tree and grabs it with one hand. He says he will count from 3. When he is done, they stop. They have to stand perfectly still. Masa thinks he is insane, yelling that they will get filled with lead, but Mio starts. The drone's still firing. You and I need to see what's next. Alright, stick with me because we're jumping right into one of the most intense survival moments ever. Our main character mutters an apology to the rat before hurling it straight at the drone's camera. The machine pivots, scanning for a new threat as it shifts focus. Movement detected. Target lock changed. New route acquired. It locks onto the rat and opens fire, riddling the poor innocent creature, who had nothing to do with this, with bullets. Then it turns back towards them, but stops just as quickly. Michio doesn't even flinch as the drone begins to circle them, analyzing their faces. A mechanical hum vibrates as it stares Masa down, yet the trigger stays silent. Now watch this part closely. This is where we see if our main character survives the scan or gets blown to pieces. A drop of sweat hits a plant as the drone hovers. It suddenly flies upwards, announcing to the world that the execution was officially complete. Masa hits the dirt, his heart racing from the sheer terror of almost being wiped out by that machine. Michio just sighs, keeping his cool, while Masa demands to know what that mechanical monster actually was. Michio explains it's an Aldir Republic drone, engineered for one thing only: indiscriminate tracking and cold-blooded assassination. Since it can't tell friend from foe, it was labeled a defective model and pulled from active duty. Masa is stunned. This thing is used in battle, and wonders how Michio knows so much about military hardware. Our main character wonders why this thing was even here. Its danger level is so high that selling or lending it to other countries is prohibited. This suggests the island might be tied to the Aldir army he used to serve in. Back at his house, Kyo calls out to our main character while his food burns. His mother quickly scolds him to say, "Welcome back first." Michio asks what's cooking, and Kyo proudly announces he's whipping up some scrap soup for dinner. This is his special dish. Now that they can afford slightly better scraps, he's actually feeling quite thankful for it. Michio considers this for a moment while the boy insists they eat because it smells great. Our main character finally takes a bite. The acidity is overwhelming. This stuff isn't even fit for humans. Even military rations taste better than this. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could anyone enjoy this soup? I'm wondering the exact same thing. His mom explains that scraps were a luxury here, so he survived on much worse as a child. Kyo reminisces about earthworm udon, pointing out a scrap of meat on a bone. It's their lucky day. He calls this heaven, then immediately demands that Michio pay up his share of the food money. Michio asks what he means, but Kyo tells him to stop playing dumb and hand over the money from his latest paycheck. Unfortunately, it's already gone. He gave it all to Masa. Kyo panics instantly, but Michio plans to keep doing it from now on. The boy drops his food in shock, blaming Michio. He fumes because there was still a tiny bit left in the bowl. Michio sets the bowl down, claiming he's found a better use for it. He tells Kyo to grab the leftovers and follow him. Kyo questions everything once they hit the forest. He's staring at a bucket and scrap metal, wondering what kind of plan Michio actually has. Michio simply tells him that this is just how he gets things done out here. Kyo whines that his food was thrown away, but Michio clarifies that he didn't waste it, he's just repurposing it for something much better. Rotting leftovers make perfect bait. The smell alone should be enough to lure something in very soon. Kyo realizes they're setting traps and asks what they're hunting. Michio figures they'll catch a few rats or some other small forest animals. The boy was actually considering eating rats, until he heard people were dying from nasty stomach infections afterward. Michio explains that sewer rats are walking diseases, but forest rats are actually a great source of protein. Since Kyo doesn't like rats, they keep walking. The boy asks if they're going to set even more traps nearby. Michio explains the overgrown bushes are perfect. The thick cover makes animals feel safe enough to approach. Kyo gets hyped as they see the results. A bird is snagged on a tree trap, lured in by a simple worm. Michio notes that tomorrow's lunch is officially sorted, and the boy can't help but agree. At the administration building's mining site, the foreman reports 643 tons of ore, but 9 slaves have already perished. The losses are heavy, mostly due to severe malnutrition and being worked to the literal bone. He pleads with Director Akichi, arguing that even slaves deserve extra food and a few more breaks. Akichi just smirks, claiming headquarters doesn't care about human lives. The foreman tries to argue, but the director tells him to shut up and listen. All he cares about is his performance review. Higher production means a faster climb to the top. He won't stay on this garbage heap. He doesn't care who dies, and trust me, you and I are ready to see him fall. Uhima just says he understands, sir. Alright, you and I are diving into a story where hope is a cruel trap. One of the men reports that goods sold hit 2.5 million with a 90% recovery rate. Those fools were out drinking and wasting money like idiots again this week. Akichi sneers, calling them animals for chasing the carrot right into his trap. He asks for more news, and a subordinate steps forward with another report. Word is that number 8 from Team G is aiming for a paradise pass. The room erupts in laughter. A slave saving 1 million yen? It has literally never happened in this hellhole before. Akichi smirks, memorizing the name. Meanwhile, Masa knocks on the door, checking if the main character is finally awake and ready to go. Masa peeks inside and freezes. He is shocked to see the main character already grinding through a workout. The boy asks what he wants. Masa wonders why he is training when they are supposed to be heading to work together. It is obvious, the main character says. This body is too weak. To reach his goal, he needs more power. Masa just calls him a weirdo. Suddenly, Q wakes up, annoyed by all the noise. Still groggy, Q spots Masa and asks who he is. Masa says he is Mo's co-worker, but Q just accuses him of stealing his salary and demands it back for food. They were always hungry in that place. Masa thinks back to his past. His sister voice rings out, telling him she is hungry. He asks if it is good, and she smiles. She loves her big brother toast. Masa desperately wants to cook for her again, apologizing for how things turned out. The boy promises to bring something good next time if Q lets this slide. Q agrees, but it better be worth at least 1,000 yen. Mio pulls on his shirt and heads out. Deep in the mine, Masa warns the crew that the ceiling is unstable. He says 2 people is enough to keep things moving safely and efficiently. Ishizuka offers to help. Suddenly, Akichi interrupts, praising Masa leadership skills. He takes safety seriously, just like the rumors said. Number 8 is quite impressive. Masa is surprised he is even known. He leads without violence and keeps production high. Akichi confirms that everything he has heard about him is actually true. Masa breaks into a massive smile, thanking him and saying he is truly honored. Akichi waves off the formality, claiming he is here to give Masa a special bonus. Rewards fuel motivation, while Wishima just watches on, fuming with pure rage. Mio watches the scene. Akichi warns that a public reward is dangerous. In a place like this, everyone is watching. He suggests they head somewhere more private and safe. Masa is excited, but the main character feels a chill. Pay attention, because everything is about to go horribly wrong. Masa tells him he is overthinking it. He just wants to accept the luck he has been given. He leaves, thrilled for the chance. Kusanagi tells the main character not to worry, saying they are throwing a party at his house. Michio maintains a look of pure fury. Masa welcomes them to his room, apologizing for how dirty it is for such important guests. Akichi says it is fine. A sealed room works better for what they have planned. Masa invites them inside. He apologizes again, offering to brew some tea for them. He tells them to make themselves at home, but Akichi's mask slips instantly. You and I both knew that kindness was fake, right? Akichi snaps, ordering his men to search. They start tearing the room apart while Kusanagi punches Masa in the gut. Masa hits the floor, gasping for air. A subordinate pins him down, twisting his arms behind his back. Masa is terrified. Akichi knows about the Paradise Pass and demands to know where the money is hidden. He hates wasting time. If Masa talks now, he only loses the cash. Masa realizes the bonus was a total lie. Akichi laughs, saying slaves are always so gullible. Masa realizes he is trapped, desperately claiming he has no money. Akichi sighs. He orders his man to get it, pulling a pair of heavy metal pliers from his pocket to start the job. Masa stares in horror as the pliers clamp down hard on his tooth. The boy screams, begging them to wait, but the tool starts to pull with brutal, agonizing force. Akichi gives the order, and the tooth is ripped out. Masa collapses in pure, agonizing pain. If he had just talked, it would have only cost him money. Now he has a choice, the cash or more pain. Back at the mine, everyone wonders where Masa is. They figure the boss took a liking to him, and they are out partying. Michio spots Wishima and knows. We must see what is next. Stick with me, you and I are about to watch a story that gets incredibly dark. Michio confronts Wishima, demanding to know where Foreman number 8 is hiding. Wishima just looks away, refusing to give him a straight answer. He warns him to stay out of it, mentioning he actually has a home to go back to. Meanwhile, at the house, Masa's agonizing screams fill the air. They're pulling his teeth out, one after another. They only stop for a second to let the poor guy catch his breath. Akichi mocks him, saying if he keeps this up, he'll never eat again. He tells Masa to talk now if he's smart, but the kid refuses to say a word. Akichi can't believe it. He's really going to lose everything over some money? He can't even make a simple decision to save himself. He acts like he's being merciful while grabbing another tooth with the pliers, bringing the cold metal right back to Masa's mouth. Masa wonders what the hell is happening. Suddenly, they shove the pliers and the tooth right back into his bleeding gums. Akichi laughs, saying the tooth is back where it belongs. Now, pay attention, they're about to do this sick extraction and reimplantation over and over again. Clapping his hands, he orders his man to extract it once more. Then put it back. Then do it all over. The command repeats. The subordinate just grins with a look of pure, sick joy. Masa is in total agony, while the director watches with a smile. Hours pass until every single tooth is gone. Akichi asks again if he's finally ready to talk. The young man gasps. Thinking of his sister, he refuses to break. He needs that money to finally get off this cursed island forever. He remembers his sister in the hospital, apologizing because she knows how much the surgery costs were hurting them, but Masa told her not to worry. He lied and said he found a great job and would bring back amazing souvenirs. If he doesn't make it, his sister is all alone. He can't let them take that money. Akichi hates that defiant look. He calls him a slave, and tells him to quit acting tough, since he's already toothless. Masa just rasps that he has no money. Akechi snaps, calling him a brainless piece of trash. But suddenly, Kusanagi steps in, kicking his own man out of the way. Akechi is confused, but Kusanagi knows the kid won't talk this way. The director just watches to see what he'll do. The blonde man grabs Masa by the shirt. He says he's going to finish this himself and even admits he's actually impressed. Then, he swings with everything he's got, slamming his fist into Masa's stomach with zero mercy. The young man collapses from a fractured rib. Kusanagi laughs, saying even after all that torture, he didn't talk. Now that's what a real man looks like. You saw that, right? Absolute brute force that shatters bones in one hit. It makes you and I realize just how much he loves hurting people. The pain is so soul-crushing that Masa actually wishes he could go back to getting his teeth pulled out instead. Kusanagi tells him to just die. Masa closes his eyes, thinking of Yui. He remembers her saying she didn't need gifts, just her brother home safe. Then, the fist strikes him one more time. Akechi says it looks brutal and tells him the pain will stop if he just talks. Kusanagi is ready to end it all right here. Masa takes another hit to the face, hearing Yui's voice telling him she loves him. He's sent flying across the floor. Akechi begs him to just give up the location, but Masa stumbles back up, whispering that he doesn't have any money. Akechi gives the signal to finish him. At that exact moment, Mo is racing toward them at full speed. He kicks the door open, but the sight inside stops him cold. Masa is broken on the floor. He shouts his name, completely horrified. Masa is barely clinging to life as Michio spots fractures from the 6th to the lower ribs. His breathing is shallow and way too fast. A broken rib likely punctured his lung and his nose is totally shattered. He has orbital and skull fractures, on top of deep stab wounds and various lacerations. His mouth is a mess of missing teeth, and his pulse is fading fast from aortic damage and traumatic shock. Looking at the damage, you have to wonder what kind of monster could do something this horrific to a kid. Masa whispers that the warning was right. Those bastards wanted his money, but he protected it until the end. Mo tells him he knows. Masa knows he can't use the money anymore, so he offers it to him. Mo refuses, telling him to wait until he's healed and spend it himself. But Masa grabs his hand, begging him to take it. He knows his time is up. If he doesn't give the location now, that money is lost forever. He pulls Mo closer. He tells him to go straight from the house toward the coast. Look for a large tree with a deep gash, the money's buried there. He worked himself to the bone for that cash, and now he's giving it all away for just one favor. He begs him to find his sister once he gets off this island. Mo asks about her, and Masa remembers her face. Trust me, this ending hits different. He remembers her cutting fabric from her favorite skirt just to make him a gift. Truly heart-wrenching. Alright, you and I are about to dive into a story that starts with a heartbreaking promise. Yui only wanted to reward her brother's hard work, and now, Masa begs Mio to find her. Mio says he cannot promise that. Masa grabs his arm, pleading for him to find Yui Honjo. He needs her to know that her big brother never forgot her, staying in his heart until the very last second. He offers one final thanks before his life fades away. Our main character just stares at the fallen young man. He gently closes Masa's eyes as the man's final tears fall, a last memory of the sister he loved so much. Carrying the body, Mio walks out of the house. He heads straight for the tree Masa pointed out earlier, not looking back for even a second. Mio starts digging with everything he has got, finally pulling a wooden box from the dirt. He counts the bills, whispering Masa's name. The job is officially accepted, and the money is his. He unwraps the ribbon to use as a mask, hiding his face for what comes next. Akechi just laughs, thanking him for leading them to the cache before Masa finally kicked the bucket. He calls Masa a rare kind of idiot who suffered for nothing. To him, dying like that is the perfect end for trash. So he says either way, this slave better hand over that blood money. Mio stands his ground, refusing the offer. Akechi just sneers, calling him another fool no better than the piece of trash he just buried. He barks an order for his men to take the cash. Mio lunges forward, dodging a wild swing before landing a heavy counterpunch right to the first guy's face. He slams an elbow into the next subordinate's chest. A third tries his luck, but Mio catches him with a brutal uppercut, sending him crashing down. Mio tells them Masa trusted him to manage this money. These are war funds. If they plan on stealing them, he will have to take them all out. A subordinate stumbles up, nose bleeding, as Akechi pulls a pistol. He calls his own men useless, raising his finger before pointing the barrel straight at Mio. Pay attention here, because this is where the real fight begins. Kusanagi stops him, saying it is a waste of a bullet. They are going to finish this the old-fashioned way. Mio stays silent, dropping back into a combat stance. Akechi tells him to make it quick. Kusanagi nods, and both fighters prepare for an all-out clash. Kusanagi charges in, throwing a flurry of strikes that Mio barely manages to slip and dodge. Mio realizes he is up against a trained boxer. Kusanagi winds up a cross, mocking him, saying that fancy footwork won't be enough to win this fight. Mio dodges and sets up a heavy counter. He lands a solid liver shot. Mio sighs in frustration while Akechi just watches with a smirk. Kusanagi laughs it off, saying that punch felt more like a massage. Now, it is his turn to strike back. Mio tries to guard, but the impact sends him flying backward. He is stunned by the sheer power behind that single blow. Akechi notes that a cat can dance all it wants, but it will never beat a tiger. Mio rushes in again, tagging Kusanagi's face with multiple hits. Akechi isn't worried, knowing those light taps won't stop a monster like him. Mio guards again, letting the fist hit his arms, but he is still blasted back. You and I can see he is literally on the edge now. One wrong move and he is going over that cliff. Kusanagi mocks him, asking if he really thinks a simple guard will save him. He calls Mio's survival plan naive. Another fist flies in. Mio slips to the side and prepares a punch of his own. He lands a perfect shot on the chin, followed immediately by another. Mio stays focused, but Kusanagi just laughs. He is actually having fun now, saying this is what a real fight feels like. Mio ducks low. Kusanagi recognizes the counter stance, but something about it feels different this time. He is sensing a shift. He pulls his punch back, moving his feet. He realizes Mio is doing more than just punching. Akechi realizes this slave is reading Kusanagi like a veteran. He has got a lethal kick hidden too. Mio shifts his guard, blocking the kick with his entire frame. Kusanagi is visibly shocked by the move. Mio lunges in for a takedown, slamming the massive fighter onto the hard ground. Akechi is floored by the sight. Mio instantly locks him into a tight jujitsu hold. Kusanagi wonders how he was read. Mio explains it was his low center of gravity and stable base that gave him away. Classic kickboxer traits. Mio drives an elbow into his face, making Kusanagi groan as he presses the attack. The giant grins, suddenly grabbing Mio's neck and squeezing with every ounce of his massive strength. And that's where we leave it, trust me. You're going to want to see how he survives this. This isn't a match, it is survival. Alright, you and I are about to watch a no-rules brawl turn deadly. He is squeezing our hero's neck with everything he's got. Akechi watches in awe, wondering when he last saw Kusanagi go this hard. Revolts were common and many experts tried their luck, but none could ever take down Kusanagi. He is a savage brawler who plays dirty and ignores every rule in the book. A basic fighter stood zero chance. Kusanagi mocks the idea of refined martial arts, claiming no fancy style could ever stop him. Our hero strikes back, driving his palm hard into the giant's chin. He snatches Kusanagi's arm. The brute realizes that palm strike was just a distraction to set up his footwork. Moyo snaps him into a brutal arm lock, slamming him down with massive force. Akechi is completely stunned. Now watch this. Our hero starts twisting that arm, throwing the brute's own words back in his face. This is a real brawl. He keeps cranking the arm. The giant screams as the bone slowly snaps, his limb being mangled until it's twisted into a sickening mess. Kusanagi groans in absolute agony. Our hero pins him down, telling him not to misunderstand. This was supposed to be a brawl, but it's not even close. It was a total, one-sided slaughter for the strongest man in the elite unit, the legendary ghost, George Sai. Despite his insane power, he had never seen a fight like this. Kusanagi lunges, shouting that things are finally getting fun. Our hero stares at those fingers, then snaps them instantly using a brutal headbutt. Kusanagi howls in even more pain. George is used to kill or be killed battles, so he drops a heavy elbow like a sledgehammer directly toward the hero's face. This was the life George knew. Because of that, our protagonist actually misses his next punch. Kusanagi gasps, paralyzed by fear. He realizes that if this kid were just some normal person, he would hesitate before taking a life. But this guy is something else, calm, efficient, and scarily confident in his movements. The protagonist strikes again. Kusanagi desperately tries to block, realizing this kid is actually going for the kill. The punch shatters his guard, slamming into his windpipe with devastating power. Kusanagi chokes for air. He realizes this guy is no simple fighter or brawler. Something is very wrong and he knows it. He is a professional killer. As Kusanagi wriggles on the ground, he recognizes the veteran soldier's style in George's moves. Krav Maga, the deadly art used by special forces across the globe. The most efficient combat system on Earth. Our hero calmly picks up a heavy stone. Let's pause here. He raises the rock to end it, but a sudden voice in his head stops him from becoming a killer. Q warned him never to cross that line and become a murderer. He drops the rock, letting it sink into the dark depths of the ocean. Our hero stands, but cold laughter fills the air. Kusanagi staggers up, wheezing that this is exactly what he wanted. This is the real deal, a fight to the death where only one man walks away. He raises his guard, but a sudden gunshot rings out. He dodges just as a bullet rips into Kusanagi. Our hero retreats toward the cliff's edge. Kusanagi stares in shock as blood pours from the hole in his chest. He clings to the ledge, breathing hard. Akechi scoffs about missing his target, but he's happy to punish a loser. Kusanagi's rage boils over. Akichi tells him to shut up. A useless dog who can't even beat a slave is meant to be put down. Fueled by pure fury, the brute charges right at his boss. Akichi keeps firing, screaming for the dog to stay down. He lands more hits, but Kusanagi won't stop. He fires again, shredding the giant's ribs and arm. It's impossible. Why is this monster still coming for him? Kusanagi throws a final punch, screaming for him to rot. Annoyed, Akichi puts a bullet right through his forehead. The massive fist freezes inches away. Kusanagi collapses right at Akichi's feet, and the director begins to laugh like a total maniac. He kicks the corpse's face, mocking the persistent dog before repeatedly stomping Kusanagi's body into the dirt. He barks at his other men, asking how long they plan to just sit there watching. Kusanagi was killed by a slave, with a stolen weapon. That is the lie they'll tell the blood-packed knights. Regardless of the lie, the man who actually took him down needs to pay. Moyo just stares back. Akichi aims his gun, mockingly praising his skills. But he notes that no matter how strong you are, one man cannot win a war. In this world, only brains and bullets matter. Mitio slowly raises his hands in the air. Akichi is surprised, but a twisted grin forms. He figures anyone would be terrified of a gun, and asks if he is finally ready to surrender. And trust me, you and I are about to see if a gun beats a master killer. Our hero stays silent as Akichi prepares to fire. Let's dive into this deadly cliffside face-off. Akichi mocks him for cornering himself, but our hero claims everything is going exactly as planned. A strange buzzing fills the air as a massive military drone rises. Akichi freezes, but Mikio just looks up. Is that the Mad Stalker? The soldiers whisper in fear, wondering if it is some kind of scout plane. A soldier steps forward and boom, a clean headshot drops him instantly. Akichi stares at the body, paralyzed by shock. Pure panic hits the squad. As the drone reloads, the remaining men scramble for their lives. The drone's sensors lock onto their heat signatures. Target acquired. Objective, total elimination. Mikio knows the legend the Mad Stalker tracks any movement. The men scream for help as it zeroes in. The machine drifts closer, killing with cold precision. Yet, Akichi still keeps his gun pointed at Mikio. Mikio notices Akichi is staying perfectly still. Does this guy actually know the rules of the Mad Stalker? They are locked in a silent staring match while death itself hovers right between them. Akichi fumes, realizing he was lured into a trap. How could a lowly slave know about this drone? It does not matter anymore. Mikio crossed a line, and now he is going straight to hell. Mikio warns him, if you pull that trigger, the drone will turn you into Swiss cheese in half a second. Now, pay attention here. Akichi thinks he is bluffing, betting his life that a tiny movement won't trigger the drone sensors. Go ahead and try it, Mikio challenges. Only one way to find out who is bluffing. The director hesitates. Where are all those insults now? He is so terrified he cannot even move his jaw. Akichi snarls that he will kill him for that disrespect. Insulting him is a death sentence. He tries to squeeze the trigger, but the drone buzzes inches away. Akichi hesitates, testing the drone's reaction. Mikio watches closely, praying the machine does not snap and fire prematurely. All they can do is wait. Eventually, the Mad Stalker should think the job is finished and leave. When it leaves, Akichi plans to end this mercifully. Suddenly, the drone halts right between the two men. The director shakes, cursing under his breath. The wind picks up, blowing their hair as the night drags on. The drone zips to the side. A twisted smile creeps across Akichi's face. This is his moment. He unloads his clip on Mikio. One bullet grazes his arm, forcing him to lurch sideways. Movement detected. The drone locks onto Mikio instantly. He does not wait around, he bolts for the edge. The stalker opens fire, raining lead on Mikio as he makes a desperate break for the cliff. Another hit. He leaps into the void, but the drone beeps and catches him right in the thigh. Pain explodes through his leg. Back on the cliff, Akichi just grins. You and I both know this looks bad. Akichi fires again, sending Mikio into a terrifying, screaming freefall. He snaps into a mid-air sit-up, correcting his fall just before smashing into the dark water below. The drone won't quit. It hovers over the splash zone, pumping bullets directly into the waves. Bullets rip through the water, hitting Mikio again. He groans, diving deeper into the dark abyss. A final beep signals execution complete. Akichi stands on the cliff, surprised it actually worked. He peers over the edge, convinced Mikio is fish food. He laughs at the slave who dared challenge him. His manic laughter echoes. But down in the water, Mikio slowly surfaces, praying they are finally gone. White-hot pain flares in his leg. He is bleeding out fast, so he ties a gag around the wound. He was careless. The bullet is still lodged inside, and he needs to get it out now. Blood clouds the water. As Mikio moves, a dark shape starts gliding toward him from the depths. Is something there? Before he can react, a massive predator charges out of the gloom. Stunned, Mikio barely dodges a row of razor-sharp teeth. That blood trail definitely drew some unwanted company. It is a great white shark, the ocean's ultimate killer, barreling toward him at 50 kilometers per hour. One bite packs over a ton of force. Mikio dodges again, but he is running out of air. The massive tail slams into him. This is bad. His lungs are screaming for oxygen. Stick with me, we are about to see if Mikio can survive this nightmare, as the shark circles back. He readies himself, diving back into the deep. He spreads his arms wide, standing perfectly still before the shark. They are ambush predators. They absolutely hate it when their prey spots them first. Stick with me, because we are about to see him unleash pure killing intent to force this beast to back off. But his bleeding wound is still drawing the shark in. But it smells his blood. He has to strike a vital spot. He is aiming right for the shark's nose. The ampulle of Lorenzini, its special sensors. That is the shark's ultimate weak spot. He wonders if it worked, but the shark slams into his stomach. Then the creature lunges again with its jaws wide open. It did not work. The gap in their raw physical strength is just way too massive. He falls back into the dark water, body screaming in pain. He kicks to the surface to catch his breath. He searches for the beast, but it is coming from behind. Mikio spins around in total shock. Now pay attention, the shark tears a piece of his clothes away. He tries to catch his breath, but against the ocean's greatest predator, human strength is completely useless. Air is running out. He is slowly slipping into the darkness. There is no other way. If this is the end, he will accept it. He won't spend his last moments pathetically clinging to life. He finally slips into unconsciousness, but a voice calls out for George Sai to wake up. A woman makes him promise that no matter what happens, he will come back to her alive. He snaps awake, thinking of Sophia. He grabs the shark's sides and begins to climb it. He can't break his promise again. That would be just way too pathetic this time. His George mentality takes over. He throws a heavy fist. He begins relentlessly punching the creature with everything he has got. The shark is furious. The size difference is insane, and the water resistance is killing his attack power. Even targeting the sensitive nose did not do a thing. You can't hurt the king of the ocean like this. He pulls the cloth from the shark's teeth and moves away. He circles behind it. He hooks into the shark's gills, using them to steer. He applies massive force inside. He strikes with all his might. Inside the shark's body, everything is a different story. You and I are watching him literally tear its insides apart. He shoves his hand deep as the shark starts thrashing in a panic. He won't let go. He pours every ounce of strength into his grip. He rips an organ out. The shark begins to sink. Mo realizes he is completely out of air. He breaks the surface, taking a desperate, deep breath. He slowly recovers until the shark suddenly surfaces right behind him. Miko turns. Is it still coming? The shark charges one last time. It opens its jaws, using the last of its strength to kill him. But then, the shark collapses right in front of him, sinking slowly into the bottomless depths of the ocean. It descends to the seabed. He breathes heavily as the rush of adrenaline finally fades. He looks up, thinking Sophia saved him, but he has been dragged miles away from where he started. He needs to reach the industrial island fast and treat these bleeding wounds. Then, he loses consciousness, drifting helpless at sea. A moment later, he wakes up coughing, his energy totally spent. He is freezing and has lost too much blood. Can he actually survive this? Suddenly, a bright light shines on his back. He turns around. The sun is rising over the horizon. It is morning. He spots a branch nearby. That is a lucky break. He swims over and grabs hold. He drags himself onto the wood to rest, gasping for every breath. He grits his teeth as the sun climbs higher. He made it. He survived another day against all the odds. Now, on an island, he realizes it has been 5 hours since he was shot. He has to remove the bullet, but his head hits the ground. Blackout. This is bad. His temperature is dropping. Someone's approaching from above. He wonders if it is an enemy since his body refuses to move. A voice asks if he can hear them and if he remembers his own name. His mind drifts back to his life as George Sai. The shooting range. Repeating the same motion, over and over, hitting the center of the head every single time until a voice calls his name. A blond young man stands there, asking if it is really him. He is Rory, a new recruit for the Ghosts. He says it is an absolute honor to meet him. George walks right past him. He says sorry, but he doesn't have time for small talk. The young man looks down in total silence. His parents died to terrorists, and because George avenged them, he is a hero. You and I can see that this meeting is the start of something legendary, trust me on that one. Alright, you and I are about to see our main character explain his cold-blooded logic. Rory is stunned by his answer. Fast forward a few days after this encounter. Terrorist artillery fire slams into their position, leaving a trail of blood and broken bodies everywhere. Medics rush in and take him away, reporting a level 7 consciousness and a blood pressure of 40/80. They immediately begin treating the fallen soldiers with total urgency. A doctor notices George has a shoulder injury, but he just shrugs it off as a minor wound. Suddenly, A familiar voice calls out. It's Rory on a stretcher, barely hanging on, asking if George survived. George tells him to stop talking. Sophia screams that it's a massive abdominal wound and a shattered pelvis from heavy-caliber shrapnel. Rory realizes he'll never be on George's level, leaving our main character completely silent and speechless. The kid cries out that he's terrified of death, but George coldly says everyone dies eventually. There's nothing to fear. Sophia snaps that life isn't a debate, ordering George to help carry the stretcher and keep pressure on the bleeding with gauze. Move fast, she says, because they're seriously short-staffed right now. Watch closely, because Sophia introduces herself as a military doctor just as the patient's vitals start crashing inside the operating room. They have to act fast. Sophia barks that a real doctor doesn't lose their cool in front of a dying man. She vows that no patient of hers dies today, and George can't help but feel impressed by her grit. As night falls, the nurses gossip about how Sophia actually saved everyone. Apparently, the rumors of her genius are true. She was a prodigy at 17, working war zones. George finally realizes what her name is. But then Sophia taps his shoulder with a bottle, calling it a bribe. She asked for help from a non-medical person, which could get her into massive trouble. One word from him and she's finished. She takes a huge swig from the bottle and celebrates their massive win. George is totally caught off guard by this. He asks if Rory will make it. Sophia admits the odds aren't great, but she's seen people come back from the brink many times. George asks if all this effort is actually just a waste of time. Even if she does everything to save them, they'll just go right back to the front lines. He asks if it's all pointless, but Sophia insists she still wants to save every life she can. She takes another drink, but then a doctor runs up shouting that Rory has finally opened his eyes. Sophia is thrilled. She rushes over to the bedside and asks Rory how he's holding up. The kid groans in pain, and Sophia tells him to stop trying to die so fast. You and I can see George is deep in thought, reflecting on the kid's fear of death versus Sophia's fierce determination to save everyone. The girl flashes a bright smile, and after a moment of thought, she begins checking George's shoulder injury. She notes that he's been careful. The swelling is down and there's absolutely no sign of an infection. He's completely healed up. Then, she playfully asks him to buy her a drink as a thank you. George asks what kind of punishment this is, but Sophia laughs, wondering why drinking with her is so bad. The other soldiers tease them, shouting that they've clearly been kissing, and they all want to buy her a round too. Even the Warlord is more relaxed than he looks. Suddenly, Rory calls out to George, saying he's finally made his choice. He's quitting the Phantoms. George warns him it's a massive risk and that he'd never survive on his own. Rory agrees, but Sophia saved him, and he feels like he owes his entire future to her. Honestly, he never expected to find this kind of warmth in such a brutal squad. Our main character realizes she was the one who changed the whole vibe of the battlefield, making the impossible happen. Even in war, laughter can exist. These soldiers found peace, but for George, this might be the last quiet moment he gets. A few days later, a frantic Sophia asks what just happened. Beck shouts that it was cardiac arrest and she needs to revive him no matter what. Sophia tells them to get him to surgery. George watches from the shadows. As the body passes, he spots a specific wound on the forehead, but stays quiet. Outside the medical facility, George realizes that burn was caused by high-voltage electricity being forced straight through the man's body. He asks if the enemy was a hostile spy, and Beck tells him he's still sharp as a razor. George complains about getting info at the last second, but killing a man just for answers isn't Beck's style. It turns out Ryan from Electrical Ops botched the job, and you and I know this is only the beginning. You and I are diving into a brutal revenge story where the past and present are about to collide with a bang. George demands to know the target's identity. Beck hesitates before revealing he is an underworld titan and arms dealer named Sed Arash, a high-ranking executive within the organization known as Ignition. George is absolutely stunned. He clenches his fist, burning with rage. For 16 years, George had never forgotten that name, not even for a single moment. Back when George was still little Joji, the boy asks for some fruit, and his father follows, saying they will give it a try. A rare family trip to the Republic of Aldir, the only time his workaholic father ever took the family anywhere. It lasted only 5 short days, but for Joji, it was meant to be a completely irreplaceable memory. Or at least, it should have been. Suddenly, chaos erupts as everyone flees the explosion of a terrorist attack. That random attack left over 200 people dead or injured. Amid the smoke, his father screams for him to hurry and get as far away as he possibly can. George looks at his father's lifeless body. He tries to grab his sister's arm but falls backward, staring in horror at the limb still clutched in his hands. Japanese news outlets reported 2 national casualties and 1 person missing, but the traumatized boy understood nothing. Meanwhile, the president of Aldir issued a formal statement regarding the brutal attack. Today, we declare this an act of war. They have stolen our people's lives, proving they are the worst kind of terrorists. We will never forget the name Ignition. Fast forward to the present, and we are back at the training center. Beck explains that for 16 years since the attack, they had zero leads on Ignition. But finally, they have tracked down the organization's secret hideout. George's blood boils. Beck notes that official orders are coming, but he is giving him the heads up now. The next mission? A total operation to annihilate Ignition. George reflects that while he was weak back then, he is definitely not that helpless child anymore. Watch closely, because this is where a routine mission turns into a total disaster. Central demands an immediate response because things have gone south. The soldier reports the unthinkable said has vanished, and he has taken Sophia with him. Beck is shocked she disappeared too, while George reels from the news. Out in the forest, Sophia is gasping for air. They are finally outside the military camp, but Sophia suddenly stumbles and falls, slamming her head. Said snaps that there is no time to stop, she has to keep moving. Sophia tells him not to be ridiculous and to let her treat the wound. But he just presses the knife closer to her face. They are far enough from the perimeter that she is no longer useful to him as a hostage. So, they continue walking into the dark. Said keeps his blade pointed directly at her. The girl swallows hard, but then a click echoes from Said's transmitter. He reports the landing coordinates are Juliet 9. It is a tight fit, but he can make it. Sophia realizes it is a transmitter hidden in his body. She wonders just how many devices they have actually implanted inside him. Just a few hours earlier, she had decided to place a patch on him to monitor his vital signs. I know what you're thinking. How is this guy still alive? Well, things are about to get even weirder. It makes zero sense because they haven't even started treatment. Maybe he never actually suffered a heart attack to begin with. Sophia turns to say the man is alive, but blood splatters her face as she watches the scene in terror. Said ruthlessly takes the nurse's life. The woman coughs her last breath while his expression remains cold and serious. Sophia is in a total panic, but Said tells her not to scream, explaining he has a heart rate suppressor implanted in his chest. He suppressed his heartbeat to levels undetectable without high-tech equipment. It is a convenient tool for an escape right now, but the downside is it causes terrible nausea after every single use. Sophia is paralyzed with fear. He tells her not to scream. When he wakes up in a bad mood and hears screaming, it makes him want to take someone's life. Besides, he plans to use her as insurance to escape this base and will take her hostage. He asks if she will come with him, but says he won't force her. He points the knife at her face, making it clear that if he doesn't have insurance, it's not a problem for him. Sophia starts crying. Back in the present, she thinks of the Ignition terrorist group. Their technology is far more advanced than she ever expected. But that isn't even the worst part. What was truly terrifying was their willingness to implant devices in human bodies to achieve their goals, their cold-blooded brutality and casual disregard for human life. The girl realizes she has only one chance left, and that is all she has. Operating on the battlefield means she always keeps certain drugs on her. Right now, she has morphine hidden in her pocket. It is a potent sedative. It kills pain and suffering, but even a tiny overdose can induce a deep coma. The morphine she carries is highly concentrated, just 2 milligrams could knock a grown man unconscious. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see how this desperate gamble plays out in the next episode. Alright, you and I are about to see if Sophia's desperate gamble actually works. With lightning speed, she jams the needle deep into the man's neck. Sahed freezes in shock as she empties the entire syringe into his veins. He blanks out instantly. The girl watches, stunned, as the monster finally collapses onto the hard ground. A cold shiver runs through her as the adrenaline fades, leaving her trembling over his motionless body. She worries 10 milligrams was overkill, but suddenly Sahed's hand snaps up, grabbing her throat. He's completely immune to the morphine. He admits it was a solid plan, but he's been building drug resistances his entire life. Repeatedly overdosing since childhood has made him a freak. To Sophia, this man is nothing short of insane. Sahed says it's been ages since his last hit and he feels great. Now, he's ready to dismantle her. 0 painkillers left. She used them all on him, so she'll feel everything. He touches his chest, muttering about borrowed lives. Sophia is paralyzed by his twisted attitude. He just keeps rambling about souls being on loan from God. Calling out to his lord, he prepares his blade. Sophia squeezes her eyes shut, waiting for the end. Now pay attention, because things are about to get really dark. He only rips her clothes, telling her fear ruins the meat. Just like cattle before a slaughter, he claims fear makes the flesh tough and bitter. Stress hormones ruin everything. The meat darkens, the texture turns like stone, and the flavor is completely destroyed. It's a waste of years of careful raising. He can't let his prized meat become something ugly and horrible. He actually begins to cry while choking her, gasping for air through his weirdly emotional state. Wiping his tears, he promises to be gentle. He wants to cut her as silently as possible. He asks her for a smile. To Sophia, this man is a monster through and through. She can only think of him as a demon in human skin as the blade inches closer to her. She braces for the blow, but suddenly, Blood splatters. Sahid drops the knife, looking down to see a massive hole has been punched through his hand. He stares in shock, hand over his eye, noticing the shot ricocheted off a nearby rock. Sahid smells a sniper. For Sophia, this might be the rescue she prayed for. Check this out. George is already lining up his next shot from deep in the shadows, ready to fire again. The bullet whistles past, grazing Sahed's ear. He slams Sophia onto the dirt, using her as a human shield. He nails the 2 o'clock direction instantly. Based on the delay, the shooter is 700 meters away. Coordinates confirmed. Now he's wondering just how many enemies are actually out there. The radio is suspiciously quiet. He realizes he might just be dealing with one lone marksman. He immediately starts relaying the sniper's info to the rest of his team. Sophia tries to bolt, but Sahed kicks her leg out, asking where she thinks she is going. To him, her only job is to be a human shield. He stabs her, growling that abandoning her post is unacceptable. Then, he keys his radio again. Sahid broadcasts the sniper's location to coordinates E13, right in the middle of that saber tree grove. He orders them to exterminate the insect caught in the morning sun. The helicopters begin to move. He sneers, asking if she thinks a coward shooting from afar is actually strong. They rely on spotters and whole support teams just to stay alive a few seconds longer. Once they miss a single shot, their position is exposed and their power is totally gone. He rants that the coward who came for her will be just another body very soon. A lone sniper is just a sitting duck, but George drops from a tree, agreeing with him completely. Sahid spins around, but his head is already spinning through the air. His headless body hits the grass. George explains the sniper shots were just a distraction for close-quarters combat. Sophia bursts into tears of pure happiness. George says everything went to plan, thanking her for acting as the perfect bait for his trap. Even headless, Sahid looks shocked. George admits he's actually not that great of a sniper. Walking over to the young woman, he asks if Sophie is holding up okay. She stares at him with wide eyes, letting out a pained whimper before she suddenly starts sobbing uncontrollably, catching him totally off guard. He tells her to stay quiet in case more enemies are nearby, but she just hugs him tight, crying about how scared she was. And that's where we leave it with George remembering some old advice. Wild, right? You and I are about to see what happens when a legendary soldier tries to handle a girl's heart. A flashback shows his friend claiming this is where a man proves his worth, just hold her in silence. He finishes by bragging that if he plays his cards right, she will surrender completely. But our hero thinks that's total garbage. He snaps at his friend to focus on war strategies instead of these pathetic fantasies. Now, in the heat of the moment, he recalls that silent hug advice even if his friend's perspective was completely warped. He pauses for a second, looking down with a deeply troubled expression. Would touching her back look like he has ulterior motives? He hesitates while she keeps crying desperately right there in his arms. Stuck with no idea how to react, his hand just stays frozen in midair. This man is a literal combat genius, a legendary warlord, yet he's completely clueless when a battle doesn't involve weapons. She clings to him, squeezing tighter through her tears. He's totally out of his element, stunned by her sudden proximity. Now pay attention, because the quiet's about to break. A roar from the sky catches them as a helicopter approaches fast. He screams for her to get down, tackling her to the dirt as the chopper starts spraying lead into the forest. He drags her behind a massive rock. It's official, the enemy soldiers have finally tracked down his exact location. A bullet catches his leg, making him grit his teeth, thinking everything is over. Without hesitation, he scoops her up and bolts. She shrieks in confusion, begging him to wait for just a second. He just roars back to hold on tight, warning her that silence is the only way they survive. They hit the cliff's edge, and he just sends it, jumping with her in his arms as she lets out a terrified scream. They plummet toward the rushing river below. From this height, the freefall feels like forever until they finally slam into the water. He holds her close, taking the brunt of the impact. The shock is too much, and she eventually passes out. After a while, she slowly groans and opens her eyes. Sitting by the riverbank, she's finally starting to wake up. She looks around in a daze, trying to process everything. He appears with a pile of wood and asks if she's finally awake, telling her to rest while he starts a fire. Feeling embarrassed, she says she is fine. He explains they use the river to ditch the trackers and need to recover their strength right now. He warns they will be moving out soon. It is about a half-day trek to reach the camp. She gives him a small smile and simply thanks him for the save. He stares at the water, saying he only did what was natural. She gets flustered and quickly covers her mouth. She tries to help by gathering food, but then her face goes pale with absolute shock. Let's pause, because you and I both know this is awkward. She's staring at his body, paralyzed, while he looks completely embarrassed. Backing away, she wraps her arms around herself and lets out a shameful cry. Her foot catches on a branch. Losing her balance entirely, she tumbles forward straight toward him. Ouch! She squeezes her eyes shut from the pain, but when she opens them, she's lying right on top of him. He's caught totally off guard. She's left wondering what to even do in a situation this incredibly awkward. She feels all her strength just draining away. Completely exhausted, she leans her body into him on the ground. He tries to stay disciplined, reminding himself he is a professional soldier. As they lean in, their faces are inches apart. He realizes there's no stopping what's about to happen next. He finally gives in and pulls her closer for a kiss. They both lose themselves in the moment. A sudden noise deep in the forest ruins the moment instantly, putting them on high alert. In a fast move, he yells for her to get down and shoves her. He whips out his weapon, aiming it straight into the darkness of the forest. His focus is razor sharp as he keeps his aim steady, ready for any threat from behind him. She watches breathlessly until a tiny squirrel suddenly scurries right out from the bushes. He realizes it's just a false alarm and lowers his gun, telling her they don't need to be alert. But as he turns back around, he gets a look of pure confusion. They stand there in absolute silence for a long moment. Feeling embarrassed, she sheepishly apologizes for the intimate encounter they just shared between them. He turns his back, claiming she was just confused by the trauma. He blames stress for causing irrational behavior and tells her she's just exhausted, so she should go back to sleep. Trust me, you and I are feeling her frustration. She looks at him in disbelief and calls him a complete amateur. All right, stick with me, because you and I are about to see a romance take a very aggressive turn. Clearly annoyed, she demands to know who he thinks he is, trying to diagnose her like that. Not understanding her anger, he questions the diagnosis, claiming he only pointed out a simple fact. He is still lost, asking what it was if not stress, right as her entire expression shifts. With total conviction, she finally drops the bomb. What she feels for him is actually love. Gripping his face, she calls him George Sai, the legendary soldier and genius master of hand-to-hand combat. The scene shifts, showing his godlike reflexes as he effortlessly dodges a strike at point-blank range. He could track a weapon's line of sight to dodge bullets, yet Sophia's slow advance was nearly invisible. It was movement far slower than a boxer's punch or even a shot from an M1911. Moving at what felt like a complete standstill, the two of them finally face each other up close. Without any more hesitation, she finally kisses him in the clearing. And this time, George does not dodge. Watch this part closely. Even the squirrel on a nearby branch is stunned by this unexpected scene. We jump back 30 days to see George's final mission before everything went sideways for him. Waking up in a panic, the young man finds himself in a strange room, tied down by restraints. He looks down at his own body, trying to process the situation while asking where he is. Suddenly, a woman appears stirring a pot, noting with a calm voice that he has finally woken up. She turns to ask how he is feeling, but he is shocked, asking if she is Sophia. But as he looks closer, he can tell something is very wrong with the woman standing before him. Another woman appears, warning him that his blood loss is too severe for him to even try moving. She tells him flat out that it should be physically impossible for him to even be awake now. Now, I know what you are thinking, this situation is weird, but it gets crazier from here. With a quick flick, she splashes a strange liquid at him, sending a violent jolt through his body. He thrashes against the bed, but the heavy leather straps on his wrists and ankles hold him tight. Letting out a small laugh, she mocks his struggle, telling him that escaping this trap is absolutely useless. She claims even a bear could not escape that belt, comparing him to a fish on a cutting board. With a twisted smile, she tells him to act like a fish and get sliced while he glares. He strains with all his might, but she repeats that even a bear could not escape those belts. Again, she compares him to a fish, warning him that he is currently stuck on her cutting board. Holding her scalpel, she orders him to act like a fish and stay still as he glares back. He screams in frustration as the restraints refuse to budge while she slowly walks toward him. She seems totally unbothered by his panic, so he asks if she is following someone's dark orders. A terrible suspicion takes hold as a vision of a sinister man named Akichi flashes through his mind. Questioning if these are Akichi's orders, he asks what they truly plan to do with him. She falls silent for a brief moment at that name, making him believe he was right. But then she asks who that person even is, leaving him stunned by her confused reaction. Picking up the instrument tray, she apologizes for the delay and introduces herself as Dr. Renee. He looks at her with deep suspicion, questioning her claim as she prepares surgery to remove a bullet. She points out the obvious, telling him there is a bullet currently lodged deep inside his right thigh. The doctor explains that the projectile could dissolve at any moment, leading to a fatal case of poisoning. In a serious tone, she says the surgery is mandatory, while he lies there in silence, listening. Then she warns him that she has some bad news paired with some very good news. The bad news is there is no anesthesia, so this surgery is going to hurt a lot. Getting curious, despite the pain, he asks her what the good news she mentioned could be. She winks and tells him she is with Doctors Without Borders, so he should trust her. Trust me, you and I are about to see if this doctor is a savior or a nightmare. You and I are about to see one of the most intense medical showdowns in Manhwa history, but with a stone-cold look, he flat out refuses to accept. Totally shocked, she gasps and asks what he just said, warning him that this is absolutely no time for jokes. The operation has to start now, she insists. But he just stares her down, repeating that he doesn't agree to anything. If she understood him, he orders, then she needs to take these restraints off him immediately. She screams, asking if he's lost his mind, warning him that he'll die. Calmly, he tells her he knows the risks. Then he offers to dig the bullet out himself, claiming he learned how to do it in the army. That's ridiculous, she yells, pointing out there's a doctor right there, but he just questions her actual skill level. He says there's no proof she's any good. Furious that he doubts her, she asks how he wants her to prove it. When she can't answer, she falls into a stunned silence. He asserts that he won't trust his life to a total stranger. Hearing that, she's left completely speechless and shaken. With a worried look, she tries to justify herself but ends up hesitating. As a doctor, she explains, she simply can't operate on a patient who is in this kind of condition. He just glares while she starts rambling about medical standards. Without consent, she says, medical acts are strictly forbidden by the law. Fine then. He challenges her to follow those rules and take off his restraints. With tears welling up in her eyes, she finally seems to give in to his stubborn request. She approaches the bed and begins loosening the straps. After releasing him, she walks to the corner and hangs up her lab coat. Standing back, she watches him in total silence. He sits up with a sigh and asks her to lend him a scalpel. Without a word, she turns to grab the instrument. She walks over and places the razor-sharp blade directly into his open hand. But in a sudden, lightning-fast move, he grabs her hand and flips the weapon around. Tears stream down her face as she stares at him, paralyzed by the shock of his sudden and violent action. Now pay attention, he pins her to the bed with the scalpel at her neck and demands an answer. Breaking the rules, she screams, would completely disqualify her as a professional doctor. Even with a blade at her neck, she tries to reason with him, crying out that there's a patient right in front of her. To give up now, in her mind, would mean she has completely failed as a physician. Suddenly he remembers Sophia, recalling how she said she wanted to save people. His expression changes with a powerful realization. He says he'll add a special clause to their consent. His proposal? A pact of mutual trust between them. He tells her he's officially placing his life in her hands. Then, he lets out a short, totally confused. She screams at him, asking what could possibly be so funny now. He explains that the most terrifying enemy on any battlefield is the one who's ready to throw his life away. A person risking it all for a purpose becomes incredibly strong, he says, as she watches him with teary eyes. In a bizarre move, he licks the sharp blade. He points the scalpel at her and says he's finally surrendering. Trust me. You and I are looking at a man who just chose to trust her completely. Closing her eyes for a moment, she takes a deep breath and finally accepts his choice. With a wink, she accepts the responsibility but reminds him that, as mentioned before, there's absolutely no anesthesia on this island. She warns him straight up that this procedure is going to involve intense pain. Using scissors, she cuts the bandage to reveal the wound. Don't move, she tells him, because the main artery is right there. He nods, saying he understands the warning perfectly. Focused, she prepares for the start of the delicate surgery. Raising her hands, she finally announces to the room that the operation is starting now. With surgical precision, she makes the first cut on his leg. She stays focused, working carefully to extract the bullet. Her eyes are locked onto the wound, maintaining every ounce of her concentration. He stays completely motionless, enduring the agony without making a single sound. She's amazed, calling him truly incredible. She mentions that she's dug out plenty of bullets in conflict zones before. But even for the toughest soldiers she's seen, having a bullet removed is usually an unbearable nightmare. No human should be able to ignore that kind of pain. He explains that pain can be suppressed with enough training. He says it's possible to endure almost any torture. Surprised, she wonders what kind of hellish training leads to that. You and I just saw it, this guy's endurance is clearly beyond any human limits. Alright, stick with me as we dive into the mind of a woman fascinated by a man who treats his life like a disposable weapon. She finally realizes that looks can be incredibly deceiving when it comes to someone like him. Assuming he lived here, she asks if he is a veteran, but he just snaps back, asking if his past even matters right now. Feeling the awkwardness, she quickly apologizes while he just keeps staring, making her look away in total embarrassment. Suddenly, he mentions how strange this feels. He admits that the longer he looks at her, the more she reminds him of someone named Sophia. Silence falls as he just sits there for a moment, quietly observing her every move. He wonders why a doctor without borders is in a dump like this. She goes dead serious, staring him down without giving a single word. Eventually, she breaks her silence. She admits she is actually hunting a specific man in this area. Now pay attention, because this reveal is wild. As he asks who she is looking for, her dark past begins to resurface. In a horrific flashback, she screams in pure desperation while a bloody face begs her to remember what happened that day. A monster of a man tells her that true art requires sacrifice. Shaking it off, she returns to the present with eyes full of fire. She grabs another surgical tool, ready to get back to work on the procedure. Taking a deep breath, she looks a bit more relieved. With a smile, she finds the bullet and starts the extraction process. Resting on the bed, he simply nods for her to begin the medical work. Instruments in hand, she finally starts working on his leg. We skip ahead a bit, as the delicate operation finally comes to an end. Outside the hut, he is recovering nicely. Sitting on the dirt with a crutch, he lets out a heavy, long sigh. Standing up, he tests his leg and feels his strength returning. But suddenly, he looks away, sensing that something is definitely not right. She just hops off the porch and heads straight toward him with a purpose. With a playful smile, she tells him he still needs rest. He thanks her, promising to pay back everything he owes for the help. She says it is fine for now, but then grins, reminding him that he really does need to pay what he owes. Confused and not understanding her point, he just asks her exactly what she means by that. I know what you are thinking, but check this out. She lists his fees, revealing a total of 548,000 yen. He freezes in shock, screaming at the price. He still promises to find a way to pay off his massive debt to her. She smiles and tells him not to sweat it, but then adds he just needs to pay the bill eventually. Holding out her hand, she starts counting up the cost of the surgery and the hospital stay. Finally, she drops the bomb. The total bill has reached 548,000 yen. He is absolutely floored, shouting about the insane price. Then, the scene shifts us over to a beautiful place filled with cherry blossoms. Arriving at a massive gate, he walks up to two guards watching the entrance. Looking around, he is blown away by the view. Inside, a bustling street is alive with people enjoying a local festival. Walking through the crowd, he sees couples soaking in the romantic vibes of the entire district. From high above, the view is stunning. He wonders how a paradise like this exists on an island literally made of garbage. This was the Flower District, a paradise of lust. Approaching the gate, he stops in front of two guards wearing suits. One of the guards turns around, asking him exactly what he wants there. He walks forward and just stares at them, silent. One guard smirks, asking if he even knows what kind of place this is. He stays calm, saying he is just a customer. Then, he bluntly states he is there to buy a woman. In a quick flashback, he asks the doctor if she actually charges for her hard work. He says he understands and admits he was wrong. Confused, she asks what kind of mistake he is making now. He thought it was charity since she is part of the Doctors Without Borders organization. He basically says medicine is just profit to her. Shaking with anger, she starts screaming at him to justify her high prices. She yells that gear and procedures are expensive, especially on a trash heap island like this. He admits he does not think it is bad to charge for her work, agreeing she deserves to be paid. She then asks if he even has the cash. Right then, he remembers a man begging him for money. The man in his memory was covered in blood, screaming in desperation. With a stone-cold face, he prepares to answer her. He says he would love to pay her, but unfortunately, he does not have a single cent right now. And that is where we leave it. He simply has no way to pay. She is left standing there, completely speechless. All right, you and I watch as she touches her forehead, saying he is the first to ever tell her that. She breaks down the cost of failure. With a heavy sigh, she settles on the best plan to fix his debt. The deal is an infiltration mission. He is skeptical, asking what the point of all this sneaking around even is. Getting low, she lets it slip the target she is hunting is hiding right in that district. Her eyes go dark as she orders him to just kill the target. He looks back, cold and serious, saying he understands. Relieved, she says that helps and explains only women can enter. But as a man, he can enter as a customer without suspicion. He stays quiet for a moment, letting the weight of all that information sink in. He asks if this was her setup from the start. She just winks and says maybe. Welcome aboard. He stares her down without a single word. Suddenly, we are back in the present where guards ask if he is buying girls. The two guards just gawk at him, unable to process the audacity of this broke-looking guy. They burst out laughing, mocking his filthy clothes. But he does not flinch, just keeps that stone-cold gaze fixed. One calls him a lowly slave miner with too much nerve, but the other says if he is a customer, the story changes. But first, he needs to show them a deposit to prove he has got the cash. Acting superior, they brag that these women are high-end. You need a fat guarantee just to step inside. Without cash, they will treat him like a lilu and kick him out. They mockingly shout, "Dear customer," once again. Now pay attention, because he is done talking. He takes a long breath, preparing to unleash hell on them. Looking at the guards, he admits he is broke. But his eyes say he is getting through regardless. He warns them he is entering one way or another. The guards are absolutely livid at his insane arrogance. One screams that he is just a broke window shopper. His partner yells that this is going to end badly. They both lunge forward at once. Instantly, he is on the defensive, blocking strikes from every single angle. He drops his crutch to free his hands, blocking a heavy blow before using the guards as a springboard. He spins through the air, landing perfectly on the big guy's shoulders. In a flash, he strikes the guard's neck with precision. The man stumbles, eyes wide with pure, absolute shock. He hooks him from behind and starts twisting the man's neck with overwhelming force. You and I can see the physics here. He is aiming for a 50-degree angle to snap the spine. His eyes sharpen as he prepares the finish. With one swift motion, he snaps the man's neck like a twig. With explosive power, he tosses the lifeless body aside like it is absolutely nothing. He then drops the first rule of fighting two people. The second guard screams, running toward his fallen partner. Rule 1 is to always kill one opponent instantly. Rule 2, your opponent is not going to listen to you. He taunts the remaining guard, pointing out that his weak friend is already dead. The guard's eyes turn bloodshot with rage. He screams in pure hatred, calling our main character a complete and total bastard. He knows exactly what is coming. The enemy is about to go all out. Overcome with rage, the guard lunges with wild, predictable swings. He blocks it easily, finding a massive opening in the man's guard. He slides to the side, prepping a lightning-fast counterattack. He smashes a devastating fist right into the guard's face with everything he has got. The impact sends the man flying. He hits the ground, bloodied and knocked out cold. He is not moving. Suddenly, a piercing scream rips through the street, grabbing the attention of everyone nearby. Seeing the bodies, a woman screams murder in desperation. A crowd gathers, confirming that the horrific news is actually true. In that moment, he remembers a warning he got a while back. In a flashback, the guards were yelling at him. Then he remembers the doctor's important advice. She told him specifically not to cause trouble in the flower district. It is no place for rowdy men. According to her, this place was strictly for gentlemen with perfect manners. Flashback, again the guards were telling him that the gates only open for some. He wonders if killing guards will be a problem. One guard snaps that he won't survive to find out. As the guard charges, he simply tells him to shut up. Trust me, you and I won't want to miss what is next. Alright, you and I are jumping into a moment where this man is totally thrown off. With his glasses shattered, he wonders why this tiny kid is acting so strange. But suddenly, the pressure shifts. He sees the kid as a massive, terrifying figure. He slams his crutch down, claiming he finally understands. To everyone's shock, he announces he's backing off for the day. The guards are just standing there, completely lost. He flashes a grin, claiming he's only doing this because he's a gentleman. The two guards are left totally speechless as the scene plays out. He turns his back and starts walking away from them. But before he goes, he takes one long, final look at the place. Staring at the massive wall, he whispers that he's got the layout figured out. He realizes the city is walled in with only one gate. Without knowing the internal structure, a frontal assault would be suicide. Suddenly, something catches his eye. He lets out a small grunt as he spots a child racing toward him with a cart. The boy skids to a halt, eyes wide. He gasps, asking if it's really him if he's actually Mo. He turns and recognizes the kid instantly. It's Kyo. Shouting his name, the boy sprints toward him with a huge smile. With a massive leap, Kyo joyfully jumps right onto his friend's back. He hugs him tight, demanding to know where he's been hiding. Kyo says he vanished into thin air and he's been searching everywhere. He pokes him, begging Mo never to worry him like that again. Now, pay attention, because here's where the conversation gets incredibly awkward. Kyo asks what he's doing here, and Mo just calmly replies that he was buying a woman. Kyo is absolutely floored. He stares at Mo in pure shock before letting out a massive scream, unable to believe what he just heard. The boy just keeps screaming. He literally can't wrap his brain around what his friend is saying. He yells that the Mo he knew would never say something so disgusting. With tears streaming down his face, he insists that Mo was always a kind person. He clings to the past, remembering the good guy Mo used to be. Sobbing, the boy begs him not to say such twisted things anymore. Mo stays thoughtful, suggesting there might be another way inside. He tells the boy that he's got an idealized image of Moyo in his head. With eyes full of tears, Kyo just stands there and listens to the cold truth. Mo warns him that, unfortunately, he can't be that perfect version of himself anymore. Kyo is left reeling from the statement. He tells Kyo he's planning his next move and not to interfere. Kyo just stares back with an angry, silent expression. Finally, Kyo sighs and agrees. He says Moyo is just a man after all, and men have urges they can't always control. Winking, the kid warns that if he sees him inside, he's going to pretend they've never met. Mo stares at the kid, realizing he's completely misinterpreted everything. Covering his ears, the boy tells him to just drop it and get to work. Kyo starts pushing the cart again, still grumbling under his breath about his shady friend. Mo stops him, asking exactly what's inside that cart. Kyo gestures to the load and starts explaining. It's all sheets, laundry, and cleaning supplies. He smiles, saying he handles the personal needs of the courtesans inside. Trust me, you and I can see the gears turning in Mo's head right now. He mutters that this is very convenient, leaving Kyo totally confused. With a smirk, he says he's going to sneak in by hiding in the cart. Kyo is horrified. He screams in desperation, unable to believe Mo would even suggest something so insane. Mo looks at the tarp and notes there's just enough room for one. Kyo yells at him, saying this is absolutely not okay. Mo genuinely asks why not, which only makes the boy even more furious. Kyo shouts that he's not helping with this and won't get involved. He points out that you can't even get through the front without a massive cash deposit. Mo just chuckles. Relieved, Kyo says he almost forgot about that barrier, and asks how much cash is actually needed. In a dead serious tone, Mo states that they'll need at least 500,000. Kyo throws his arms wide, saying he's never seen that much money in his entire life. Meanwhile, Mo starts plotting how to use Kyo to his advantage. With a dark smile, he says he's thought of a great use for Masa's inheritance. Kyo is stunned. He asks if he's talking about that same Masa. That's when Mo drops the bomb. Masa is dead. Grinning maliciously, he claims Masa left all that money specifically to him. Kyo just stares, trying to process this cold-blooded plan. He asks if the actual plan is to use a dead man's inheritance as a deposit for a brothel. Mo just smiles and says there's no other way into the district. Kyo is left speechless, completely shaken by how heartless his friend has become. He adds that they'll never find Masa's sister anyway. Using the money this way is much more meaningful in his eyes. Furious, Kyo stomps his foot onto the ground with enough rage to crack the pavement. He grabs Mo, screaming at him to stop this madness. Crying, he begs him not to waste Masa's legacy on something so vile. So what do you and I make of this? Mo stares at a cherry tree while Kyo screams that he's losing his soul. Alright, you and I are about to see if a simple agreement can change everything. He puts a new deal on the table to seal the agreement. He swears he won't touch the inheritance if the kid helps him, asking if that isn't the deal of a lifetime. He waits for Kyo's reply. Gritting his teeth, the boy looks like he's actually weighing the options. Moyo just watches him, waiting patiently for a final answer. Suddenly, Kyo grins and admits the idea is actually pretty solid. Pointing to the cart, he says he can just relax inside. He sighs and apologizes, but hey, it's all for the mission. That district was an island of luxury, standing tall right in the middle of the nasty slums. He's convinced the escape route is in there. His soldier's sixth sense is screaming that something major is waiting. Pushing the cart, the boy looks like a total nervous wreck about this whole plan. When they hit the entrance, they come face to face with those same two gate guards again. From inside, he whispers for the boy to stay calm and act natural. But Kyo just snaps back, asking who he thinks he's talking to and telling him to leave it to the expert. Waving his hand, Kyo shouts a friendly hello to the guards. Hidden away, Moyo stays dead silent, just watching the interaction. One guard recognizes him as Kyo, the errand boy. Kyo tries to rush past them, but the two guards move fast, blocking his path entirely. Shocked by their sudden attitude, the kid just stares, having no clue what's going on. One of them bluntly tells him that whether he passes or not is entirely up to them. Trying to push through, Kyo says they already know his face, but the guards don't care and decide to tear the cart apart. Outraged, he screams at them, asking why they're suddenly searching him for the first time. One guard loses it, grabbing Kyo by the collar and barking at him to shut up. Does he have something to hide? The guard runs out of patience and slams the kid to the ground. He walks over and starts peeling back the tarp. Watch closely, he's about to rip back that fabric right now. Crouched inside, Moyo just waits to be caught. On the ground, Kyo realizes his nerves almost ruined everything. Seeing the guard get suspicious, Kyo rushes over to try and stop the search. This was the ultimate test for Moyo's plan. In one quick motion, the guard rips the tarp completely off. To his shock, there's nothing but supplies. Exactly what Moyo expected, and he was ready for it. The guard rummages through the load, checking every inch while the boy gets more annoyed. He picks up a handsaw and asks why this is in the gear. Kyo explains they're just his daily work tools. The guard runs the saw along his face, testing the edge. Moyo had actually used those tools to build a secret spot. By building a false bottom, he was able to hide completely underneath the load. Now, you and I need to see exactly how he pulled this off. Let's jump back 1 hour to the flashback. Back then, the kid was whining at him not to break his expensive work tools. He notices the cart is falling apart and offers to fix it. Kyo is hyped and accepts the help immediately. Present day again, and the guard finds nothing. The other guard just stares at the sky, bored. He's lost in thought. Finally, they swing the gate open and tell Kyo he's clear to pass. Kyo throws the tarp back over, hiding his friend again. Then he pushes the cart right into the district. Once they're inside, Kyo admits the whole thing was terrifying. He tried his best not to look suspicious. With a grin, Moyo thanks Kyo and says they finally made it inside. Embarrassed, the boy just stares at him, totally caught off guard by the sudden thank you. Announcing he's gotta go, Kyo gets ready to bolt. He yells for Moyo to remember their promise. With eyes closed, he just nods and says he gets it. Then he asks for the name of Kyo's boss. Winking, Kyo tells him she is one of the four supremes. Hearing that name, he goes quiet for a second, deep in thought. The boy tells him goodbye and leaves. Walking off alone, he celebrates finally getting into the flower district. Now, he just needs to find his target. He recalls the name of the man he's hunting is none other than Kenzaki. With almost zero intel, he needs a new plan fast. He starts walking through the district to investigate. You and I just saw him enter a world of luxury. Now, let's see him survive. Alright, you and I are about to dive into a city where the streets hold more history and culture than actual logic. For our lead, soaking in the city atmosphere with every single sense is just part of the job. He spots a strange regularity in the architecture, noticing one tenement building that actually has 5 rooms sharing the exact same layout. A woman sits at the entrance as a silent welcome for guests, while he notes several other rooms are strictly off-limits. Scanning the area, he quickly realizes that a huge chunk of these rooms are totally shut down. Even in broad daylight, the district is buzzing. Yet he notices that open rooms are becoming incredibly hard to find. His eyes land on a specific unit where the lady on the left seems to be available for guests. On the right, another woman waits patiently for a customer, so he finally makes his move and picks one of the rooms. He takes that first step, deciding which lady to approach, before walking straight toward the room on the left side. He asks for permission to speak with her, and she looks up with a mix of curiosity and dead serious intensity. He stands his ground, waiting for an answer. As a tiny smirk plays on her lips, she is clearly amused by this. Then she drops the bombshell: they absolutely do not accept first-time customers at this establishment. Confused by the policy, he tries to push back, but an older woman warns him that persistent men just aren't welcome. He turns away like he is giving up, but he just stays rooted to the exact same spot. The phrase makes zero sense to him. Suddenly, a chorus of women starts chanting that first-timers are strictly banned. One girl approaches with a polite apology, hammering home the house rules one more time. Another repeats the line with a nervous grin, while a voice from the shadows denies him service once again. A woman in the dark mutters that first-timers are just too complicated. He stands there, completely baffled by this bizarre situation. Finally snapping, he yells out, asking what the hell a first-time customer even is. But wait, a piercing scream from nearby cuts through the air. Someone in the crowd yells for a man to release Lady Kuzu. He witnesses the chaos firsthand as a desperate plea for help rings out from just around the corner. A man is holding a woman hostage, threatening her life if anyone moves. People are panicking, begging him to stop this forbidden violence. The guy just mocks them, claiming everyone in this place thinks way too highly of themselves. He screams that he gave everything to Kosuzu, but she rejected him. With a blade to her throat, he curses the district. Someone shouts back that it is his own fault for not being a regular. He yells that the whole city is a scam. Losing his mind, he spits out curses, calling the entire place nothing but a filthy, disgusting slum. Our lead stays silent, watching it all unfold. The man mutters that he will end up as a slave miner at this rate. The mention of slave labor strikes a chord. He remembers that men exploited in this district get sent to that hellhole. Driven to the edge, the man asks her if she is ready to die together. The crowd is absolutely losing it. One man won't stand for the insult, but a woman pushes through the mob, ordering everyone out of her path. The guys recognize her immediately, shouting Lady Yoi's name in total shock as she marches forward. He realizes she is Kyo's boss. The hostage taker screams for her to back off or he will kill the girl instantly. He keeps barking threats, but she does not stop until she is right in front of him, staring him down in silence. You and I are about to see how a real boss handles business. She snaps a fan across his face, stunning him. The onlookers mutter that this is just another typical story of a man threatening a high-ranking courtesan. He watches on, knowing this drama is common here. She says a man with no courage to act has no right to wound their pride. With eyes like ice, she gives him one final order: get out of this city quietly. Terrified, the man calls for his own guys to help. But when she orders her men to move, they freeze up. They are shaking, saying the guy is armed with a sharp blade. She can't believe they are being serious right now. Disgusted by their cowardice, she watches as the man snaps, tightening his grip on the knife with a wild scream. He lunges forward, howling that she is going to die right here. The blade is pointed straight for her heart, but in the blink of an eye, a shadow moves. Someone lunges forward to intercept the strike and protect her. He snatches a fan, using it like a shield to parry the lethal blow of the sharp knife. He pulls her back, dragging her away from the enraged attacker just in time. She can only stare in pure disbelief, and that is how it is done. Trust me, you and I are definitely going to want to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are jumping into a scene where our main character just shut down an attacker with a grip of absolute steel. He slams the guy down, pinning him until he screams, while the lady behind him stands there completely frozen in shock. The guards and the onlookers? They're totally stunned by how fast this all went down. Holding the knife, he calmly tells them it's safe and asks for some handcuffs. The guards drag the screaming man away while the young woman drops to her knees, apologizing for putting her sister in such a dangerous spot. Her sister consoles her, admitting she just couldn't sit back while that creep insulted them. She warns that this place turns people desperate, so they have to stay sharp. The girl just smiles and promises to be careful. The lady turns to him, clearly wanting to talk. She thanks him and asks if he's some kind of martial arts expert. He just says, "It's something like that." She praises his moves but then eyes his clothes, asking if he is an errand boy. With his eyes closed, he flatly tells her that's not the case. Looking serious, he claims he's just a customer out for a good time, which catches her completely off guard. Then she turns around, telling him to stay close and follow her lead. Now pay attention, because we're about to see a very sudden invitation to her private gaming room. He just gives her a cold, serious look. Meanwhile, a boy sweeping the street nearby lets out a bored sigh. The kid complains that Mo is trying to live it up despite having zero cash. He shouts that it's way too early for this kind of behavior, but then admits that without any real cash, Mo wouldn't be entertained here anyway. He decides to cook a nice meal for him, but suddenly Lady Yoy's calls out, warning him that there is a customer waiting right now. The boy smiles and greets her as Lady Yoy's, but seeing the two of them together totally blindsides him. Confused by the situation, the boy screams, shocked to see Mo hanging out with his own boss. Once they're inside the room, the two sit down for a private talk, while the boy peeks through the door, telling them to enjoy themselves. They sit in total silence for a moment, just staring each other down. The kid wonders why Mo is with Lady Yoy's, while she reaches out and beckons him to come sit right next to her. He just sips his tea, staring back in silence. Giving him no reaction, she tells him to do whatever he wants, lifting her kimono to tease him. Watching from the outside, the boy reacts in shock before running off to finish his cleaning duties. Back in the room, Mo grabs his teacup and watches her very calmly. He asks if this is her way of thanking him, but she says saving her life is worth far more than this. Hearing that, he stands up with his crutch and moves in. Closing the gap, he sits right in front of the mysterious woman and firmly places his hand on her thigh without any hesitation. She stares at him intently, her face completely unmoving even as he makes such a bold, daring move. His hand begins to slowly slide up her leg, but then he suddenly stops and pulls back, offering an apology for the bold gesture. He finally reveals his plan, admitting he lied about being a simple customer, and asks her to answer some questions as a real thank you. Now here's a twist you and I didn't see coming. She just exhales and laughs at his bold honesty. With a serious look, she tells him she already knew he wasn't a client. She closes her fan and says he passed her test, leaving him totally confused about what test she means. He asks how she caught him, and with a smile, she says the answer is actually quite simple. Opening her fan, she explains that the secret was his missing bracelet. Official customers always receive one as proof that they actually paid up. Without that proof, everyone is treated as a suspicious and dangerous infiltrator in this city. She explains that the phrase about not accepting customers was just a polite rejection. He finally starts to understand how the system works here. She then mentions that it costs a fortune just to have a little fun around here. Customers have to feed money into an automated machine just to talk, and it sucks up a bill every 5 minutes. People have to endure the horror of watching their cash vanish. She laughs, admitting the whole system is an outrageous scam. He just stares at her in silence, processing all this insane information. He realizes that is how desperate customers are born, and she agrees with a wave of her fan. She explains that all customers start as regulars who cannot touch them. After hitting certain criteria, they rise to the level of preferred kneeling. She clarifies that only at this higher rank can they get truly intimate. So what do you and I take from this? This whole city is just a massive scam where only the preferred are finally allowed to go to bed. Let's dive in as she shuts her fan, reflecting on the district's messy situation. Looking dead serious, she mentions there's way more to the story than just that. He waits in silence for her to elaborate, finally asking what kind of high rollers actually frequent this place. Hiding behind her fan, she reveals they're mostly from the mainland, and suddenly, the pieces start clicking for him. He immediately asks about any way off this island, like ships or even planes. She hesitates, fan still up, before apologizing. Information on leaving the island? That's strictly confidential, top secret stuff. Annoyed by the brush-off, he just clicks his tongue in frustration. She asks if he's done with the interrogation. He closes his eyes and says he has one last thing. He's looking for a former doctor named Kenzaki, but she just tilts her head in total confusion. Names don't mean much here, she explains. Hearing that, he just goes quiet, processing the grim reality. Smiling, she decides it's her turn now. She grabs his hand and makes a proposal he never saw coming. Now watch this, she leans in, asking if he wants to be hers. He just blinks, totally lost. Before we get an answer, the scene shifts to the end of the chapter. Two men face off in a temporary ring. With one sharp shout, she signals the start of the violence. Our guy is suddenly brawling with a man in a black suit, but the reason? Total mystery. Back in the room, he asks her to clarify that crazy proposal she just made. She corrects herself. She wants him to join them, not just her. He's still looking at her like she's speaking Greek. Turns out, she's actually scouting him to be her personal bodyguard. He's stunned into silence as she gets up, signaling for him to follow her across the room. He follows her upstairs to the top floor, where she stops at a door and swings it wide open. His eyes go wide. This place is luxury, defined a massive contrast to the filth of the slums outside. The courtesans form squads of 5 for safety, living in these high-end apartments right above the gambling dens. She claps her hands, calling for everyone to gather round for a quick introduction. The ladies of the Camellia group assemble. Kosuzu steps forward, thanking him for the help back on the street. Pawn and Ron give a quick wave while staying busy with their own thing. Every group gets an exclusive bodyguard. Suddenly, a panicked guy bursts in, shouting for Lady Yoisi. The guy is devastated. Why is he being fired? She just points to our hero as his replacement. Our main character hasn't even said yes yet, but the fired guy is already on his knees, begging. She asks the group if anyone objects. The girls just smile and back their leader's play. The others don't care either way, which sends the man into a desperate spiral for one more chance. He points right at our hero, yelling that he's not losing to some scrawny little punk. Watching through her fan, she's clearly entertained. One girl suggests letting the poor guy have a shot. The guy vows to crush him, injuries and all. She just smiles and declares the match officially on. Trust me, you're going to want to see how a former soldier handles this fight. The man lunges with a wild strike, but he effortlessly dodges, using his crutch to pivot out of range. Don't get cocky, the guy snarls. Our hero stays silent, just tracking his next move with cold eyes. With a loud roar, the man charges in with a rapid-fire flurry of punches. He weaves through every hit with fluid precision. As a former soldier, he hates any violence that isn't necessary. Screaming in pure rage, the man throws himself into one last desperate assault. Strikes are flying everywhere as the guy gives it his all. But our main character? Perfectly calm, totally composed. This bodyguard gig is the perfect cover to stay in the city. The perks are just too good. He tightens his grip on the crutch. It's time to end this little game. He tosses his crutch aside and lunges. The man thinks he has an opening for a final blow, but he's walking right into a trap. With one lightning-fast strike, he connects right with the man's chin. And that, my friends, is how you make a grand entrance one punch, and the old guard is history. Raising his arm, she names him the official winner and the district's newest bodyguard. Outside, the crowd is buzzing about his insane power. Trust me, you and I are just getting started on this journey. Strapped into his new suit, he grumbles that it's way too stiff for him to move naturally. Suddenly, a woman sneaks up behind him. With a playful laugh, she mentions his tie is a little bit crooked. As she fixes the knot, she praises his match, calling his fighting style earlier incredibly cool to watch. She steps back from him, casually mentioning that they don't have many clients around today. With a bright smile, she invites him to a welcome party. He just stares back with a dead serious expression. Everyone raises their glasses for a huge toast. The room is buzzing with celebration as they enjoy the party. She asks why he's not drinking, but he just says alcohol is straight poison. The girls wonder why Kumika looks so pouty. She huffs, complaining the party was supposed to be for just them. Another woman reminds her that falling for a guard is strictly forbidden in this place. Blushing hard, Kumika denies it, but admits that strong men always make her feel strange when they're around. Suddenly, Ron slams her cup down. Pay attention, because things are about to get real. Chowing down on a chicken leg, she listens closely before warning Kumika she'll definitely snitch if a romance actually happens. He casually eats sushi, noting that reporting people earns them points, which is a good thing. Kosuzu snaps at her to stop, while another asks how many points a romance violation is actually worth. Ron pulls out a scroll, searching through the text for the information she requested. She yells in shock, it's a 20-point penalty. Kumika screams that she's absolutely not having a romance with him. Ron says 20 points could rank you up. In this district, your entire life is determined by points. He explains that the 3 of them are currently just low-ranking courtesans called Usubeni. Meanwhile, Yoise and Kumika are Oberuzukyo. Yoise is even close to becoming one of the 4 supremes. Kumika tells her to shut it, not wanting to hear another word about the hierarchy. He realizes the city is tiered for everyone. She sips her drink, confirming the district is a hierarchical society. He absorbs the info in silence, asking if snitching is the way people rank up. She confirms it. Refilling her glass, she says some snitch just for points. He suddenly gets up and approaches Ron with his crutch. He looms behind her, staring intensely while she tries to read through the scroll. His eyes widen as he prepares to snatch the scroll. In one swift move, he grabs the paper right out of her hands. She screams at him for being a rude guard. He ignores her, finding a rule worth 10 points. He asks if the rule says no one can leave the district. She confirms it, saying neither the women nor guards can leave. Her face goes dark as she says the only way out is death. The others just shrug, happy they have food. They call the place paradise because of the perks. Surrounded by food, they seem to be enjoying life. He looks around. It looks like paradise, but you and I know there's a catch. He asks if this place isn't just a prison. Suddenly, Ron calls for an errand boy, and Kyo answers. Attending her call, everyone starts ordering another round of drinks for the party. He mentions the errand boy entered the gate today. She confirms they're the only exception to the rule. She invites him to join the party and eat. The boy is shocked that Miko is talking as an equal. Staring at the moon, the boy sighs. He tells himself Mo has become someone from a distant world. Suddenly, his stomach growls loudly. He realizes he's actually very hungry. He eyes Lady Yoi's leftovers, but an old woman appears and screams that he can't do that. She explains leftovers go to the slums later. He tells her to shut it, but she reprimands him. The door swings open and Mo appears, calling for Kyo. The boy asks why he's there. He presents a massive feast of delicacies. The boy drools, saying Moyo really understands his hunger, but the old woman screams that those leftovers are absolutely off limits. She points at Mo. She warns that Mo might report him. The boy looks at Moyo, who just stares in silence. He says he doesn't care about snitching. Trust me, his favor is going to be insane. All right, you and I are about to see if this boy takes this risky offer. The next day, he drags his cart through the deep forest, every step showing just how exhausted he really is. Suddenly, he spots someone and shouts out. Waving frantically, he calls to a woman busy hanging up some laundry. She turns around, looking totally confused by the kid, suddenly shouting her name. He rushes over to ask if she is Lady Renee, and she giggles, thanking him for helping Moyo get inside. She hands him a cup, surprising the boy with a drink. He stares in awe, saying he's never seen water this clean before. Sitting beside him, she insists he only drinks the clean stuff and offers to teach him the secret. She explains the process of boiling and purifying it, leaving him stunned. Then, with a smile, she asks how Mo is doing. He excitedly reveals that Mo became an exclusive guard on day 1. She grins, clearly satisfied and happy to hear the good news. Remembering his mission, he hands over an envelope. He tells her Michio sent him with a secret message that had to be delivered. She opens the package, her face falling as she reads. Mo is looking for intel on a dangerous man named Kaki. Feeling curious, the boy tries to sneak a peek and asks if she is searching for this guy. He smiles and offers to be their messenger. She closes her eyes, carefully weighing the risk of trusting a child. Now pay attention, she tells him she can't trust him, and the boy loses it, screaming about why she won't. She explains the district is completely locked down. If they get caught doing this, the danger would be life-threatening. Gripping the envelope, she tells him to back off. She shouts that, in the worst case, he could be killed for being involved. Terrified, the boy goes silent and just stares. Suddenly, the scene shifts back to the night they first met and made a deal. On that night, Mo had tasked the kid with delivering a crucial letter directly to the doctor. The boy smiled, thinking it would be easy. He offers the food he got, but the old woman screams, warning him those leftovers are bad. Crouching low, he offers them the food, but only if they stay completely silent. It was hush money to keep them quiet. Inside that box was a massive feast filled with incredible, delicious dishes. The old woman's eyes go wide in shock. She grits her teeth, clearly fighting the overwhelming temptation to snatch the food. Finally, she gives in and starts devouring the feast while thanking him. They eat like they've been starving, grateful for the meal. Mouth full, the boy smiles, enjoying every bite. Back in the present, he looks pensive after finishing his meal at the clinic. Clutching his bag, he looks like he's made a huge decision. He spills everything to the doctor, claiming Mio lied to him. She just stares, curious to hear the rest of the tale. He angrily explains that Mio claimed he was going off to buy a woman. You and I can see he was hurt by the lie, but he's glad Mo is helping others. Now, he shouts with pure determination that he wants to help too. She just stares at him. Surprised by his own energy, he whispers that Michio actually can't get anything done without his help. Letting out a long sigh, she finally seems to agree with the boy's bold claim. They laugh about how weird Moyo has been acting lately. He smiles, telling her she can share everything without any worries. She closes her eyes and decides to trust him. With a serious look, she finally starts talking about the man named Kaki. She warns that he's likely using a fake name and face. The boy panics, screaming that they'll never be able to find him now. Sitting down, she says Kanaki has a very unique and special trait. She says it's something he can never change. The boy stares, hanging on to every single word she says next. Meanwhile, in the flower district, life goes on. He notices that customers are traveling from far beyond the island just to visit. Yoai comments that the place feels surprisingly peaceful for once. This makes him realize there must be a secret way off the island. However, he insists it is impossible since this is his mission. She laughs at how serious he is, calling him an incredibly stiff guy. She notes he is starting work late today. Looking up at the balconies, he sees the others are already hard at work. She explains that the morning workers are usually the ones with the lowest point totals. Suddenly, Kosuzu screams for Fujinaga. Waving him down, she asks if he's free, but he awkwardly tells her maybe another time. He brushes her off completely. Shocked by the rejection, she just watches him walk away in silence. He notes how desperate she looks. Yosi smiles, telling him that one day he will finally understand how this system works. And trust me, you and I will see if he liked those leftovers. Alright, you and I are watching as she catches him off guard, asking exactly what kind of secret plan he is hatching. He just stares her down in total silence, his expression dead serious as he tells her not to make these baseless accusations against him. She turns away, promising not to report him, but tells him he had better remember this moment. Pointing right at him, she warns that he owes her a favor now, but he just asks for her true goal. She says when the time comes, he just needs to take her side, and he quietly processes the very strange offer. Suddenly, a voice cuts through their conversation as a man in a hat approaches them with a wide smile. He asks how she is feeling and if she is taking care of her health, even taking off his hat to check for physical changes. Addressing him as Dr. Moroi, she tells the man that she is doing perfectly fine. The doctor smiles, explaining that all the women here are his patients, and he is simply checking on their health. Noticing Moyo, he says the face is new, so she introduces him as their group's brand new exclusive guard. Introducing the doctor, she explains he handles the regular checkups, though she finds his early arrival today to be quite strange and suspicious. The doctor says he is here for the district president, and after she asks, he confirms the president is doing okay. Suddenly, the doctor locks eyes with Moyo, noticing his crutch and asking if he is suffering from a fracture. Hand on his chin, the doctor says it is serious and could get infected, despite Moyo claiming it is just a cut. He offers to help, but Moyo immediately shuts him down and refuses. Warning him not to take injuries lightly, the doctor insists on helping and crouches down as he prepares to disinfect the wound. Now pay attention here, Moyo is not having it. He lands a massive blow that sends the doctor flying. In a smooth circular motion, the doctor's gloves go spinning high into the air. The people on the street are completely shocked by the attack, and the boy asks what it all meant. She reveals their target has a prosthetic arm, a fact that leaves the young boy completely wide-eyed and shocked. She explains that this mysterious man is missing his entire arm from the elbow down. Disguises can change everything, she says, but a lost limb never grows back, and the boy can only listen in a complete silence. Back at the scene, the doctor's assistant lunges in for the attack. Moyo dives to the side, dodging the strike with focused eyes as he notices something incredibly vital during the middle of the brief clash. The young assistant continues his fast assault. Mo just stands his ground, using his crutch to block the incoming blade with a single, precise movement. Yoisi can only watch in total surprise as the fierce fight unfolds right before her. He uses sheer strength to hold his ground, leaving the assistant staring in disbelief that his attack was blocked. Screaming, the doctor orders his assistant to stop the fight immediately. He quickly disarms the boy, bringing the tense confrontation to an end. Backing away with a look of relief, the doctor watches the scene carefully as things finally start to settle. He apologizes, blaming his assistant's lack of training and his own abrupt attempt to treat Moyo earlier. In a soft, worried tone, he repeats that deep wounds can easily get infected. Watch this part carefully. He adjusts his prosthesis, admitting it's inconvenient to live like that while snapping his fingers. Moyo just gives the doctor a silent, cold stare, completely ignoring the assistant's presence. The doctor says the boy's actions were unforgivable and tells him that he's actually apologizing to the wrong person here. The assistant agrees with the scolding and bows deeply, offering a sincere apology for his reckless behavior. With a dark look, the man realizes he was only seconds away from killing him. Still serious, he glares at the assistant before the doctor apologizes once more to Yosi for the chaos. He calls for Roku, and they finally head out, while she asks if he is really okay after all that. Holding his crutch, he says he is fine, but then notices that the wood was actually shattered during the fight. That night, he sits alone on the roof under the full moon, looking at the damaged crutch in his hands. Closing his eyes, he concentrates deeply, diving back into the memories of his confrontation with the young assistant. And that's where we leave it, two warriors staring each other down, knowing the real fight is just beginning. Alright, stick with me, you and I are about to watch a training session that is straight up legendary. Suddenly, the young man adjusts his glasses with a terrifying new expression, as a mental simulation of the incoming counterattack begins. His injured leg gives out, sending him tumbling just as the youth lunges forward with a deadly blade strike. A spinning blow connects, sending him flying across the room. He barely dodges, but the impact shatters his crutch. Sweating and exhausted, he lets out a scream of pure agony. Looking up in shock, he sees an overhead attack coming, but the boy just scoffs, calling his movements painfully slow. Now watch this. This is where the disadvantage becomes impossible to ignore as the assistant lands a brutal, dead center hit. With a desperate cry, he is completely overwhelmed. Later, sitting on the roof, he realizes he has lost yet again. 57 defeats now. Still, he keeps simulating every possible move inside his own mind. With his leg mangled, he is only at 40% capacity, but he refuses to stop predicting every single move the enemy could make. The mental battle rages on, taking hit after hit upstairs. This constant repetition was the core of his soldier training, allowing him to predict and react to any strike. It boosted his battle intelligence to insane levels, even if the assistant in his mind felt impossibly strong. Wait, a win rate under 10%? Even I am shocked this kid is only 12 and facing such impossible odds. He wondered if that speed was even humanly possible. Suddenly, a voice snaps him back to reality. He looks back to see Kyo approaching and asks the news. Smiling, Kyo says he finally figured out the prosthetic arm and reveals that he has already managed to track down Kenzaki. It looks like a fight is coming soon, though he still looks totally lost. The boy asks what is happening. With a grin, he tells Kyo he identified the target thanks to his help, and the boy looks absolutely thrilled with the compliment. Patting his back, the boy says empty praise will not get him anywhere. Walking down the hall, he asks Kyo to keep this secret, then stops suddenly as a strange scent hits the air. Looking ahead with a confused face, he enters the room and finds two women looking incredibly pale. Kosuzu is in tears while Kumika tries to comfort her. He just stands there in silence, feeling completely out of place. Entering the room together, the boy grabs the man's leg and starts shouting to get his attention right away. He asks what is wrong, but the boy yells at his cold attitude. Pointing at the women, he warns that Kosuzu is crying, but the man just asks, "So what?" Screaming at him, the boy says you should always pretend not to notice the tears. It is an important rule. From a distance, the man watches them talk on the sofa, while the girl mentions the upcoming monthly evaluation meeting. Crying, the other girl asks what she means, terrified that their secret might be discovered at any cost. Her friend tells her to stay calm, promising that no one will notice a thing. Making a shushing gesture, she claims only the two of them know, then looks directly at her for confirmation. With tears in her eyes, the girl stays silent and broken. Under the moonlight, a message confirms the payment is done. He pins the target down, thanking him for being useful. He watches the customer leave with the girl, who offers a polite thanks. The customer promises to come back, and the girl says she will wait before letting out a sigh. Suddenly, a colleague approaches from behind and offers a compliment that catches her off guard. Yoyi mentions that was the fourth room today, securing the evaluation. Clenching her fists, she promises to work even harder now. Her friend tells her not to overwork. Across the street, his men finally call him. He is starting to see the link to this monthly evaluation. Over time, the flower district begins to change. The streets grow much busier with people moving through the area. The next day arrives with birds on a branch. On the roof, the man sits cross-legged in deep meditation. Suddenly, his eyes snap open with intense focus on the space ahead. He rests a hand and stands up. With a lightning-fast motion, he strikes, then spins across the roof with a second blow. Startled by the sudden noise, the birds take flight from the branch. Looks like his training paid off. Trust me, you and I aren't ready for what this leg can do next. Alright, you and I are diving into a world where status is everything. Check out this major announcement. He hammers the gong, shouting that the monthly evaluation is finally starting. Below the stage, a crowd of women waits in absolute silence. A massive scoreboard displays the rules and the grim punishment for last place. Every participant stares at the board, faces frozen in fear. In this local hierarchy, this meeting decides their entire future. To finish, he announces the long-awaited arrival of their great president. The president steps forward, beginning her walk. She doesn't hesitate to step right onto the back of a man serving as her stool. She continues her climb, ascending a staircase made of living people. At the peak of this human pyramid, she nears her podium. From a distance, the man watches this entire scene with a dead serious expression. Now pay attention here. Suddenly, she trips. She loses her balance and falls forward. A hand snaps out to catch her. Two guards immediately rush to support her, asking if she is hurt. She just smiles, calling them reliable. Suddenly, one of the guards lunges at the man who made her trip. He delivers a direct blow right to the man's face. He hits the ground, writhing in pain after that hit. The guards watch the aftermath before escorting her the rest of the way. Finally, she reaches the podium, flanked by her protectors. On the stage, a guard kneels to hold a megaphone for her. She takes it, preparing to address the massive crowd of waiting women. She says customers only come for their effort and their dignity. The women in the audience erupt in applause, grateful for her words. Smiling, she claims that simply being alive is a victory. Her tone shifts, confessing she hates these meetings, but competition is the only thing that maintains the district's high quality. She says the system fails without proper pressure. With a dark smile, she asks who will be the one to finish in last place. Her words create a suffocating silence. The man strikes the gong, shouting for everyone to fall into line. In response, a group of men runs to form the requested line. You and I can feel the tension. Our protagonist watches every move with an incredibly attentive expression. The women turn as well, looking anxious about what's coming next. Suddenly, a man in a hat emerges, walking straight through the crowd. Arriving with his assistant, he adjusts his glasses while observing everything closely. He looks at the crowd and says, "It's time." The announcer then screams that the moment of truth has finally arrived. He prepares and begins drumming with massive force, hitting the surface of the drum with all his might. The president bellows into the megaphone that the champion is Joyce. Her name immediately flashes atop the massive scoreboard. Her colleagues whisper that she's incredible, which is exactly what everyone expected. Accepting the praise, Yoi just thanks her colleagues for recognizing her effort. A friend says Yoi will be one of the 4 Supremes. Crying heavily, she says knowing Yoi is her greatest treasure. Announcing second place, the president calls Mio's name over the megaphone. Kumiko congratulates Yoisi on her win. Surprised, Yoisi notes it is rare to hear a compliment from Kumiko. In response, Kumiko tells her to stop acting like she's some kind of heartless villain. She says she can at least be polite, and Yoi apologizes. She mentions that the 4 Supremes all get a mansion. Kumiko confesses Yoi was a nuisance, but admits things will feel a bit lonely once she is gone. Hearing that, Yoisei just smiles right before the announcement for third place begins. The president shouts that third place goes to Kumiko. Radiant with joy, Kumiko celebrates the incredible news she just heard. To congratulate her friend, Yoi lands a heavy, bone-jarring slap right on Kumiko's back. She complains about the pain and begs Yoisi not to hit with such brute force. Yoisi apologizes, explaining she just got too excited. She tells the others to take care of Pawn. The president then announces 10th place, keeping the vibe high. But when they reach the halfway mark, a heavy silence begins to take over. In this island of misery, the district was a true paradise. That's why the idea of expulsion was terrifying. Sweating, the girl waits for the final rankings. For all of them, expulsion was basically a death sentence. For those not yet called, the pressure of elimination rises. Now, the president prepares to announce 22nd place. She calls Ron's name, and her rival celebrates. In disbelief, Ron says she lost to that sickly girl. Her body has its own demand. You and I must see what's next. Alright, you and I are about to see how a simple ranking ceremony turns into a total nightmare. Her friend tells her not to worry. Yoisi says she had enough customers to stay safe, but the president suddenly announces she'll reveal everything right now out of pure boredom. On the board, Kosuzu lands in 30th place, barely escaping the bottom. Relieved, she thinks she can keep her normal life in the district as usual. With a smile, the president concludes the monthly sales ranking, but then she warns those were only the preliminary results. Mentioning a report, she brings up secret bonus points and heavy penalties. She announces that the entire ranking is about to be reorganized. Striking a gong, the man shouts that the real results are starting now. The scoreboard then begins updating every single name and position. The last 2 spots flash. Yoisi watches, totally lost. Even her rivals are confused, questioning what on earth is happening to the list. Names shuffle into the middle positions until only one is left. In the end, Kosuzu's name drops to the very last spot on the board. Completely paralyzed with fear, she cannot believe what just happened to her. The women whisper, wondering what she did to fall so far. On stage, the president asks why the announcer is so silent. She demands he hype up the crowd or lose his job. Surprised by the command, the man fails to react for a moment. Now watch this part. He screams into the mic about a massive plot twist in the rankings. While Kosuzu stands there in shock, Yoisi finds the whole situation tedious. With an annoyed look, she clicks her tongue in disapproval. Interrupting everyone, she asks the president for permission to ask a question. The president praises Yoisi's hard work this month, but Yoisi defends her friend, questioning exactly what violation Kosuzu committed. With a smile, the president calls Yoisi a cruel person as well. She asks if Yoisi really wants that shameful violation exposed. Backing down, Yoisi shouts that it was not her intention. Accepting the request, the president says humiliation is part of the punishment. She orders the local code to be read. Shouting the rule, he explains it's strictly forbidden to sleep with first-time customers. Complaining about the noise, he says that rule is common knowledge. The president asks if she was obviously aware of it. Kosuzu stammers, unable to answer, while Yoisi questions her actions. The president explains that the district is no ordinary place. She describes the area as an exclusive playground for the wealthiest executives. She asserts they don't deal with common clients. In the crowd, he just watches the conversation unfold silently. You saw that, right? She defines value as being unattainable, comparing their worth to a high-end luxury designer bag on sale. According to her, no man pays a high price for a woman who gives in too easily. By teasing without satisfying, they boost their value. Still, she says the last place finisher lay down with a rookie. Crying, the girl cannot deny the accusation. Hearing the confession, the other women turn to stare at her. Turning to her friends, she says she loves the city and the group. She explains that fear of being fired terrified her. With her face blurred, her rival just watches the scene from afar while she cries. Kosuzu says she couldn't get customers in the few she had left. In a flashback, a man threatens her with a knife. Desperate, she begs for one more chance, promising never to do it again. Through the megaphone, the president calls her stupid. She says they dress her and turn her into a valuable brand. But the girl devalued herself, acting like a thoughtless fool. With total contempt, the president says she is no better than trash. Kosuzu breaks down, paralyzed and shattered by those harsh words. In the crowd, a girl notices something weird on the board. She calls her friend over, saying something terrible is happening. The scoreboard suddenly shifts and updates the positions again. Kumika's name rises to the very top spot in the ranking. Turning to her colleague, Yoshi says she can't believe it was her. With a smile, Kumika opens her mouth to justify herself. She says rules are rules, and she simply could not ignore the situation. Grabbing Kumika, Yoshi screams, asking how she could do such a thing. Kneeling on the floor, Kosuzu cannot believe the betrayal. In a flashback, she remembers a chat with Kumika. That night, Kumika had actually encouraged her to sleep with customers quickly. Trust me, you and I just realized that in this district, your best friend is often your worst enemy. With a smile, Kumika says she has no idea what she's talking about. The president praises the informant for protecting their dignity. She congratulates Kumika, who has been promoted to the Elite Four Supremes because of this. Alright, you and I are about to witness some serious drama as she demands a round of applause. In the crowd, the women clap, agreeing the punishment was well-deserved. Yoshi grabs her colleague's clothes, eyes burning with pure rage. Provoked, Kumika strikes back with a sharp slap across Yoshi's face. Looking down on her rival, she boldly claims her spot as one of the new Four Supremes. Screaming in fury, she warns Yoshi not to touch her, calling her an inferior. Surrounded by the others, she claims the heavens are watching their every move. Justice prevails, she says with a wink. Well, that's the story they're sticking to. As night falls, the flower district finally starts to quiet down. Inside the room, different groups huddle in their own corners. On the sofa, someone points out just how silent the Camellia group has become. Even after the evaluation ended, his expression stayed completely serious. Now pay attention to how differently these two are treated. As the informant, Kumika gets whisked away in a luxury car. Meanwhile, the offender is dragged toward the gate by guards, her face twisted in pain as they kick her out of the district. Yoshi and her colleagues just stand there, watching the entire scene unfold from a distance. Back in the room, Yoshi lets out a long, heavy sigh. One of the girls on the sofa groans, saying she's completely lost her motivation. She's still wondering what Kosuzu was thinking with that crazy stunt. Sitting alone at the table, Yoshi downs a glass of liquor in one go. She slams the glass down, spilling drink everywhere. Seeing this, he approaches and tells her to quit and just go to sleep. Raising her glass, she tells him it's not that simple. She reminds him he's duty-bound to protect this place until she's out cold. Without even looking at her, he tells her to do whatever she wants. Sitting on the floor, he grumbles that drunks are a nuisance in any world. She stays silent, just staring at him for a long moment before speaking again. She notes that in this city, informants are treated like heroes. Slamming the table, she screams that everyone blames Kosuzu but ignores what Kumika did. To her, the whole situation is completely messed up. He argues that discipline is the core principle for any group to survive. She agrees, but insists that treating a snitch's betrayal like an achievement is just wrong. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Is she just a sore loser? Well, he asks if she's just mad about losing first place. Turning away, she warns him she's not in the mood for jokes. Closing his eyes, he apologizes for his poor choice of words. She exhales a cloud of smoke and starts talking about the island. She says the courtesans live in luxury, never wanting for anything. Refilling her glass, she asks if he actually sees this city as a paradise. He admits the residents told him this place was heaven on earth. Because of that, he assumed it was exactly what it looked like. Laughing at him, she reveals they are actually under constant surveillance. She explains they're all just dancing on a thin line between getting fired or getting a promotion. She calls it selling their souls, labeling their supposed happiness as nothing more than a total delusion. Listening closely, he keeps his eyes fixed on her. He adds that they're being tricked into working until the day they die. All of this is the handiwork of Lady Kikyo, the district president. He wonders what that woman is hiding beneath her surface. Beneath the smiles, she hides cruelty and a hunger for control. He asks if the president created this whole twisted system herself. Looking aside, she notes that he's actually pretty quick to catch on. With her back turned, Yoshi admits that Lady Kikyo is absolutely terrifying. She cries out that the president views them as nothing more than cattle. In silence, he just lets her vent her frustrations. Suddenly, the boy bursts in screaming that he's gathered a ton of important info. He runs right past Yozi toward his boss. Confused, she asks him exactly what kind of information he's talking about. The boy finally notices her and covers his mouth in a panic. Annoyed by the scene, the man clicks his tongue in irritation. She asks the boy again what that information was about. Stammering, the kid can't find an answer and doesn't know how to react. Walking around the table, she demands to know what he meant. With trembling hands, the boy continues to stutter, unable to speak. Grabbing his face, she orders him to start talking right this second. Trying to pull away, he refuses, saying he can't say a single word. Struggling, he screams that he'll never betray Moyo's trust. From the sidelines, his boss wonders if the kid is just plain stupid. The boy then yells that he'd rather die than betray his leader. Faced with his silence, she asks if he remembers the local code. He confirms he studied like crazy just to get hired in this district. Full of confidence, he says he can recite the whole thing from memory. She pulls out her fan and challenges him to recite Article 3. Startled by the sudden test, the boy is left speechless for a moment. He finally recites the rule about never disobeying a superior. With a smile, she pats his head and offers him a mock congratulations. She reminds him the code literally forbids him from disobeying her. She then accuses him of defying orders, which is a very serious crime. And trust me, you and I are about to see him regret it as she threatens him. Alright, you and I are about to dive into a web of secrets where one wrong move means a cold death. Holding up 2 fingers, she lays it out 2 choices. Option 1, keep your mouth shut and deal with the fallout. Facing expulsion as the punishment, the poor kid just shakes his head in absolute terror. With a grin, she says she is not a monster. Option 2, tell her every single thing he knows. The prize? She will keep his boss out of this mess entirely. Grateful, the kid starts praising Yoichi for her mercy, practically begging to spill the beans right now. His boss watches, thinking how easy this kid is to play. He followed the culprit right after the test. She snaps at him to lower his voice before the whole building hears them. He confirms he gave the order, then asks if she is curious about what happens to those expelled. He knew something vital was waiting at that destination. She nods. Rumors say courtesans end up in human experiments. He wonders if they are sent to a disposal site or just dumped off the island forever. Now, pay attention, because here is the twist. Kosuzu was never actually expelled. Stunned, they both freeze. She grabs him, demanding answers, but he tells her to keep it together. He explains that men in suits were the ones who took her. We see him leaping across rooftops, tracking them to the gates while the guards checked for witnesses. What he sees stops him cold. They didn't leave, they headed for the east wall. She questions him. The east wall is just a dead end. He confirms it. Kosuzu entered the alley building, leaving Yoi completely baffled. She turns away, calling it impossible. He tells her to quit the drama and just ask. Only a clinic sits there, Dr. Muroi's clinic. He asks if she is absolutely sure. He starts piecing it together. If she's there, his suspicions might be right. Okay, I know what you're thinking. She's under the care of the hated Dr. Ren. She gets up to leave, and he follows. The boy is left wondering what is happening. He turns and forbids the kid from coming. The boy is stunned, but he still chases them down the hall, calling out his name. He warns that a fight is coming. Together, they step out into the dark corridor. She asks what his plan is, staring him down with a cold, suspicious look. He stands his ground, telling her she should just go back and get some sleep. She refuses. It is his duty to protect his exclusive courtesan, after all. She looks away, silently accepting his company as they walk side by side. Arriving at the clinic, they've reached the final stop. The closed sign hangs on the door. With a heavy sigh, she prepares to call out. Pounding on the door, she screams for the doctor to open up right now. Suddenly, the door creaks open, breaking the heavy silence. A gaze fixes on them from inside as a young assistant asks why they are bothering people so late. She fakes illness, but the kid says the doctor is resting. She starts stuttering, covering her mouth and insisting she needs help immediately. Suddenly, his focus shifts to the second floor. He stares at the upper floor while she keeps arguing with the stubborn assistant. The youth says she looks fine. She won't take no for an answer. She pushes inside, telling him he doesn't know a thing. He warns that this area is off limits. Trust me, you and I will want to see what happens next. Alright, stick with me. You are about to see one of the craftiest setups in this whole story. Out of nowhere, her bodyguard scoops her up, apologizing while she screams to be let go. He hauls her away as she yells at him to put her back on the ground. Leaning in, he whispers for her to stay quiet and just listen. Then, he drops a bombshell. This building is crawling with hidden security cameras. She is stunned, but he has already counted 18 of them. While she is being carried, she cannot help but wonder why a simple clinic would need that much surveillance. He is convinced there is either some massive treasure or a dark secret hidden inside. She goes silent, letting that sink in while she processes the info. Meanwhile, he starts looking back, trying to piece together what is really going on here. He concludes the clinic is definitely hiding something big. For now, they just do not have enough intel to make a move yet. Across the way, the assistant watches them closely from the shadows of the dark clinic. In total silence, he realizes the timing is not right. As he carries her, he wonders what their next play should be. Fast forward 3 days later. It is evaluation time, and Yoizi is deep in thought, judging the girl standing right in front of her. Kneeling there, the woman hears that her looks are actually pretty decent for a place like this. Snapping her fan shut, Yoizi announces that the woman passed. She looks at Rina, ready to deliver the final, life-changing verdict. With a sharp smile, Yoyi declares that from this moment on, she is officially a courtesan. The woman looks completely blindsided, clearly not understanding what just happened. We flash back 3 days to when they were debating that clinic visit. All 3 of them sat in silence, trying to make sense of everything. Now pay attention, because this secret is the key to everything. She wonders about the cameras, while he is sure Ren's target is the doctor. Turns out, the doctor is using the clinic as a front for a secret that absolutely nobody can ever find. Breaking the heavy silence, the boy tries to speak up. Seeing how tense everyone is, he decides it is time to lighten the mood. He asks who is going to replace Kumika and Kosuzu now that they are gone from the district. Taken aback, she turns toward him. He mentions the government will fill the roles, but she wants to know exactly where these new girls come from. She explains they likely arrive from off-island through a very specific, secret route. He is stunned, repeating the fact that they are all coming in from the outside. Jumping up, he asks if she and the others are outsiders too. She shoots him an irritated look, warning him that digging into the past is forbidden. She makes it clear nobody here truly knows her real story. Plus, she does not know a single thing about Ron or Pawn's pasts either. Hearing that, he just sighs, realizing how complicated this whole situation really is. She stands up, claiming she is exhausted, and heads to bed. The boy admits he is actually pretty nervous about a stranger showing up. He asks if she has the power to reject whoever the government sends. Clutching her chest, she confirms the final choice is hers alone. That revelation lights a spark in his eyes. He asks if he can bring a candidate for her to personally evaluate himself. She agrees, though she warns him there are not many suitable women left on this island. Flipping her fan open, she brags about how her screening process is legendary for being tough. The boy questions her with a smile, and she just nods. You saw that smirk? His plan to lie about a patient is genius. The boy realizes what is happening, and stands there in total shock. Back in the present, Yoi tells the doctor she is now a courtesan. Confused, the doctor just watches with a puzzled look. Kneeling, the woman begs them to stop, flat out rejecting the whole idea. She yells that she has zero intention of becoming a courtesan, and asks about that emergency patient from before. Then the truth hits: there was no patient. She is left completely devastated by the cruel revelation. Turning to the others, Yosi orders them to teach the new girl everything she needs to know. The woman stands there paralyzed, unable to move. Then she slowly turns, looking at him with nothing but pure, unadulterated rage in her eyes. She screams that she has been tricked, collapsing to the ground while the boy repeatedly apologizes to the doctor. Grabbing him by his clothes, she demands to know if he planned this whole thing. He holds his tie, admitting the situation is definitely weird. She remembers how he announced that emergency in such a flat, monotone voice. On the way there, he apologized so much that she actually started to worry about him. Holding her head, she realizes she never thought he would lie. Pointing a finger, she accuses him of using a child to deceive her. But then he drops the bomb. Her target, Kanaki, is in this city. She freezes, eyes wide and speechless, as the weight of that news finally hits her. He warns her that she will get a chance to find him tomorrow. With a serious face, she stands her ground and accepts the offer. As the doctor arrives, you and I will see if this gamble pays off. All right, stick with me because you and I are about to dive into a dark medical mystery, where the doctor is the real monster. With the monthly evaluation finished, he promises her that a life-changing opportunity is finally about to come her way. She nods with a look of pure steel. The doctor then knocks on another door, announcing it is time for the next exam. Welcomed inside, he steps into the room to begin the medical consultation with his next patient. At the door, a brand new courtesan greets him. Winking, she introduces herself as Ringo, the latest girl in the district. Hearing her name, the doctor simply notes that she is the new face around these parts. He asks to enter, mentioning that this specific room used to belong to a woman named Miss Kosuzu. Removing his hat, he introduces himself as Dr. Moy of the Flower District. The second she hears his name, she freezes up, unable to move a muscle. She analyzes every single detail of his face. She has to be absolutely certain of this man's true identity. With sweat dripping down her face, she stares in silence. Finally, she confirms this man is her target, Kaki. Kneeling, she claims she is relieved he is such a kind doctor. Behind her mask, she smiles, saying she was desperate to find him. Suddenly, she draws a hidden dagger. She has wanted to end this man's life for a very long time. She grips the handle, ready to strike. In a flashback, a voice warns her to absolutely not kill her target yet. The voice explains that the doctor's deadly assistant would likely end her life the second she made a move. He begs her not to throw her life away. Trust me on this, the perfect time for their vengeance hasn't arrived just yet. Back in the present, she pulls her arm back and slowly hides the sharp blade away. Noticing her strange expression, the doctor asks if something is wrong. She claims she is fine and tells him to proceed. Using his stethoscope, he asks if she has been eating. He continues the exam, asking if she has been sleeping well lately. He then moves on, asking if she has any history of serious illnesses or past surgeries. He questions her about medication and family genetics. He even asks if she is prone to catching simple colds. The doctor continues the exam, asking about high fevers and any other ailments she might be hiding. Finishing the notes, he smiles at her. With his clipboard in hand, he says her internal systems are in excellent condition. With a bizarre look in his eyes, he comments that her body has always been quite special like this. She thinks to herself that he is right. She remembers working with soldiers in war zones, where she literally begged for death. A soldier shouted that he could not take the pain anymore. The doctor just watched, calling the man suffering a waste. With a twisted smile, he told the dying soldier that he would make a perfect new test subject. She screamed that his words were inappropriate. He simply turned, calling the broken soldier useless for anything but research. He claimed he could advance modern science by 30 years using them. She realizes he has always seen humans as mere samples. Staring at him, you and I have to wonder what his true, twisted plan really is. Breaking the silence, he admits he forgot to ask her age. Without hesitating, she tells him she is 28 years old. The doctor looks surprised, appearing not to believe her. His strange reaction gives her a brand new suspicion about him. Ending the exam, he says her health is perfect. Putting on his hat, he says goodbye to see his other patients. He calls for his assistant and leaves her alone. Watching him go, she wonders if he lost interest because of her age. Staring into the empty space, she begins to form a brand new theory about the man named Kaki. Sitting at a table, she hears a man ask for her report. She says she must explain the unusual nature of their target. Not understanding the mystery, he just stares at her, waiting for the full explanation she promised to give him. She mentions her time with Doctors Without Borders again. That was where she first crossed paths with the man named Kanaki, right in the middle of a war zone. Back then, only 3 people from Japan joined the organization at the same time. It was her, Kanaki, and a man named Satsuma. Being the only Japanese staff, they became close friends at the camp. But even then, she remembers that Kanaki was always a bit strange. She originally thought he was just passionate about medicine. She remembers a patient tied to a stretcher. Shocked, they asked what Kanaki was actually doing to that poor man. Smiling, he said he was testing a transplant. Showing a severed leg, he said he found a good one for the procedure. Terrified, Satsuma asked the doctor if he even understood the gravity of what he was doing. He explained that soldiers leave the front when they lose limbs. He shouted that his new medicine would transform the battlefield forever. They watched in horror as the patient began to convulse violently. Trust me, you and I are just getting started. You and I are about to witness a scientific experiment that went horribly, brutally wrong. Watching the scene, Kaki sighed over the immune rejection while Satsuma coldly ordered the patient onto the battlefield anyway. Quoting Thomas Edison, Kaki muttered that there is no such thing as failure, only lessons. With a twisted spark in his eyes, Kaki became even more obsessed, earning a direct punch to the face from Satsuma. Grabbing Kaki by his clothes, Satsuma screamed he would never allow this surgery, especially since it used an enemy soldier's leg. Shaking with fury, he yelled that this was way beyond the limits of medical ethics. Lying on the floor, Kaki smirked, claiming ethics only slow down real progress, leaving a stunned Satsuma wondering what he meant. He questioned if medicine actually moves forward because of morals, before staring Satsuma down to finish his dark argument. Gritting his teeth, Satsuma could only watch him with eyes full of pure, simmering rage. After their fight, the fallout was simple for breaking the rules. Kaki was sentenced to 14 days of isolation. With a mosquito buzzing nearby, he stared at his cell ceiling. But those 14 days pushed his sanity to the brink. Barefoot and slow, he walked the prison corridor while the guards supervised Kanaki due to a massive staff shortage. Satsuma genuinely believed that Kaki would learn from this mistake and finally return to his senses. Watch closely reaching the cell to deliver food, Satsuma suddenly stepped into a massive pool of fresh, thick blood. Horrified by the sight inside, he rushed to the door, screaming and demanding to know what Kaki had actually done. Unable to force the door open, he kept shouting for his colleague, while the food he brought lay scattered everywhere. Looking down at the victim, Kaki just lamented that while the organs were great, the vessel was weak. Holding a bloody scalpel, Kaki claimed these parts would fuel his experiments, causing a horrified Satsuma to call him a bastard. Pure rage was in his voice, but with a smile, Kaki said he arrived at the perfect time. Without a second thought, he hurled a scalpel at his colleague. hitting him in the neck as Satsuma grabbed the wound. Ignoring his confusion, Kaki explained he just needed new subjects and tools, grinning as he compared it to a patient bringing their own scalpel. Slumped on the cold floor, Satsuma tried to gasp out Kaki's name one last time before dying. When she reached that cell, she knew something was wrong inside. The mangled remains of Satsuma were scattered across the floor. Now, I know what you are thinking. Is this horrific tragedy the real reason she is still hunting the doctor today? Thinking for a moment, she admits that the past might just be an excuse for her. With a sad smile, she reveals she wants blood for her fiancé's death, leaving him in heavy, silent shock. He asks what Kaki's goal is in this place, and she explains he is a madman obsessed with body modification. For that reason, there could only be one dark motive for him to hide there. With that, he finally understands the doctor's plan. He is here to perfect the most horrific human body modifications imaginable. She concludes that the clinic must hold the doctor's most twisted, dark secrets. Suddenly, Yoi turns, realizing someone heard them, and grabs her fan, ready to confront the mysterious person in the shadows. Approaching the table, the woman admits she heard everything, and with tears in her eyes, she asks if she can ask a question. Pointing at her face, Yoi asks about the messy makeup, admitting she was actually moved by the woman's intense determination. The doctor begs her to keep the secret, and Yoi promises she will help them. Turning to her, Yoi agrees to assist the mission, surprising everyone with such a reaction from the famous courtesan. Calling out to him, she orders an infiltration of the clinic with Rina, vowing to act if the doctor is doing wrong. With the evidence, she claims they can finally punish him using the local district laws. Kneeling on the floor, Rina screams that punishment is not enough, but Yoi reminds her that killing is strictly forbidden here. Touching her, Yoi says doctors must keep people alive. She warns that killing him would make her no better than the monster she hates, leaving Rina to simply click her tongue. Relaxed in his chair, he agrees with the plan but issues a dark warning he will kill the doctor if it becomes necessary. Showing his hand, he coldly says that they are already dirty anyway. He claims he would have raided that clinic already if he could, but points out the dozens of surveillance cameras watching their every move. With her hand over her mouth, she recalls her dramatic performance in front of the clinic. Trust me, you and I are about to find out if this dangerous infiltration plan is actually going to work. Alright, you and I are about to watch her pop this cork and start a mission that is absolutely insane. Ignoring the glass, she chugs directly from the bottle. He asks about the plan while the doctor watches in total confusion. With her mouth full, she admits she's actually a terrible actress. The doctor breaks into a cold sweat. He realizes she is literally about to become a real drunken patient. Bottle in hand, she says she will lure them away and tells him to be ready. They are both stunned by Courtesan's boldness. Suddenly, she sprints toward the window and prepares to jump. Without a second of hesitation, she leaps from the second floor and slams into a man in a suit. They crash onto the stone floor with a loud thud. The noise draws a crowd immediately. Yois wriggles on the ground as people recognize her. He shouts for them to call a doctor and not touch her head. The doctor claims it is serious and they must treat her. Rina clenches her fist, fully understanding the plan to act. He asks if she's really going to waste Yois's sacrifice. This emergency will leave the clinic completely empty. With the target gone, they have the perfect opportunity to break into the building. Down on the street, the doctor and his assistant finally arrive at the scene of the accident to help. Lying there, Yois tells Rina not to fail and says she's counting on her. Outside the clinic, the two prepare to finally enter the building. Running forward, he uses his arm to smash the front door. With one blow, he shatters the wood and opens the way. Worried about the loud noise, she notes he's being bold. With the door open, he calls for her to move as fast as possible. Drenched in sweat, she prepares to enter and begin her search of the clinic. Entering the room, he observes the dark and silent atmosphere. With a serious look, he notes that there is nothing unusual yet. She emerges from the back, saying there was only a storage room. He finds nothing suspicious, but she finds that hard to believe. Now watch closely. His eyes widen as everything is about to change. He drops to the floor. With his ear pressed against the boards, he listens in total silence. He hears a sound coming from below. Following the noise, he finds the source hidden directly under the examination table. Looking closely, he discovers there is a basement in this room. Under the table, a secret ladder leads to the subfloor. They light the way, descending the long ladder into the dark basement. At the bottom, they find a massive metal door. Without flinching, he grabs the handle and pulls the basement door open. Inside, they find something truly horrifying. Meanwhile, on the street, a massive crowd forms around the fallen and broken Yois. Blood smears her mouth as she moans in pain. The doctor claims she has broken something and will treat her right there. Lying on the stretcher, she knows this will buy them time. She blinks to signal her companions. Lying on the ground, she wonders where her own attendant went off to. The doctor approaches and asks if she is looking for something. With a smile, he asks if she's looking for Roku. Surprised, She stares as he reveals that he already sent his assistant back to the clinic. He looks down at her from above, stating that this certainly didn't look like an accident. The revelation leaves her shocked and stammering. With a cold, dark look, he asks her why she decided to jump on purpose. I know what you're thinking. She's terrified he knows their secret. While back in the basement, the search for the truth continues. Walking through the basement, they find a massive secret lab. Inside a capsule, a man with a respirator sits completely motionless. She wonders if these are horrifying, inhuman experiments. She growls Kenzaki's name with pure hatred. Furious, she punches the glass and screams about his cruelty. Suddenly, she feels something touch her hand on the lab floor. She turns and sees a creature crawling toward her, screaming in absolute terror. A humanoid creature crawls toward her, sobbing loudly with tears in its eyes. The thing makes a loud, agonizing sound that chills the bone. The creature stops right in front of the two visitors. He looks on with a serious face, finally understanding the tragic situation of these people. He kneels, realizing the doctor has been stealing their dignity this whole time. Picking up a knife, he promises he will finally let them end their suffering. Suddenly, a projectile slams into the floor near his hand. He turns to face the mysterious person who threw it. You and I just witnessed a total nightmare. He prepares for combat, but a sudden strike leaves a cut across his cheek. You and I are diving into a standoff where the doctor's assistant says it's impossible. With a bleeding face, our hero glares. The young man refuses to slaughter the doctor's innocent test subjects. Gritting her teeth, she screams in total disgust. These aren't just specimens, they are real human beings. The assistant draws his sword to wipe out the intruders. Without a second thought, he lunges forward to cut her down. He swings with lethal intent. Frozen in Shizak, she sees the steel coming and can't even move. Just then, he steps in and parries the blow with his weapon. Shoving the boy back, he admits he can't find the girls. He screams for Rina to go finish the mission. Determined, she nods and bolts. She kicks the assistant back, screaming for her companion to stay alive. Blade in hand, he swears she won't pass. But that distraction lets Renai sprint to the back of the laboratory. Even with his face bleeding, he catches the sword with his bare hands. Watch this, a terrifying power move. Shocked, the boy tries to yank his sword back, but it won't budge. He gets tossed aside, nearly crashing down. He barely recovers and backs away. The assistant realizes this is getting messy, and he needs to end it. He brags that his speed is superior, but the youth prepares to finish this fight in a single heartbeat. With a cold gaze, he locks onto his enemy, ready for combat. You and I can see the tension as they position themselves. The assistant charges forward like a total blur. He tracks every movement with a focused gaze, refusing to give an inch. At the very last second, he blocks the strike. The assistant's eyes flare with pure rage as he glares. Ready to counter, he slams the ground, using the massive impact as a shield to defend himself from any follow-ups. He spins away, dodging the next hit and putting some space between them. He admits his leg wasn't at full strength earlier. Now, you and I are about to see his true maximum power.